Yo, what's up? Welcome to Dark Harry, where stories come alive. Buckle up because today we have What If Harry Grew Up as an Addams and Used Dark Humor Against Voldemort. He surrendered. Quick favor, if you dig this content, drop a like and subscribe. It takes just a second but means so much to us. Let's roll. Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. Oddly, the lightning split the sky over Privet Drive as Morticia Addams paused mid-stride, her alabaster hand reaching out to touch Gomez's sleeve. "Do you feel that, mon cher?" she whispered, her voice like silk sliding over a tombstone. Gomez Addams, dressed impeccably in his pinstriped suit despite the midnight hour, turned to his wife. The rain plastered his slick black hair to his forehead, but his eyes gleamed with excitement. The exquisite sensation of something wrong. He grinned wildly. Absolutely delightful. They'd been on holiday in England, visiting the Tower of London for their anniversary when Morticia had felt the disturbance, magic both ancient and fresh, death and sacrifice, all swirling together in the suburban monotony of Little Whinging. There, Morticia pointed toward number 4, where a small bundle lay on the doorstep. "Someone has left a gift." They approached the bundle cautiously, not out of fear but anticipation. Gomez lifted the blanket to reveal a sleeping baby boy with a fresh lightning scar on his forehead. "A child," Morticia breathed, her red lips curving upward. "Abandoned in the night during a storm. How marvelous." Gomez spotted a letter tucked into the blankets. He read it quickly, his expression growing more delighted with each line. "Cara mia. This is Harry Potter. His parents were murdered by a dark wizard named Voldemort, who was somehow destroyed when he tried to kill the boy. A baby who survived the killing curse." Morticia ran one long-nailed finger gently over the lightning scar. "And they've left him with ordinary muggles." Gomez consulted the family tree he always carried in his breast pocket. "Look here." He jabbed at the parchment excitedly. "Doria Black married Charles Potter. This boy is family, distant, but family nonetheless." Morticia gathered the sleeping child in her arms. "The Blacks are related to us through your second cousin twice removed who married my great-aunt Demodia." "Precisely." Gomez beamed. "We can't leave family on a doorstep in the rain. It would be improper. Especially one touched by such magnificent darkness," Morticia added, studying the scar with appreciation. Gomez nodded solemnly. "We'll raise him as an Addams." And so Harry Potter disappeared from Privet Drive, leaving behind only a damp doormat and a very confused Albus Dumbledore the following morning. "Higher, Uncle Fester. Higher." 5-year-old Harry Addams squealed with delight as he clung to the makeshift catapult. "You got it, kid." Fester cranked the lever back another notch. "Ready? 3, 2, 1. Fire." Harry sailed through the air, black hair wild in the wind as he arced across the Addams family graveyard. He crashed into a pile of autumn leaves, rolling out covered in dirt and sporting a massive grin that revealed a missing front tooth. "Did you see how far I went?" Harry scrambled to his feet, pushing his round glasses back up his nose. "A new record," Gomez announced, snapping his pocket watch closed. 17 seconds airborne. He ruffled Harry's perpetually messy hair. "Your father would be proud." Over the years, Gomez and Morticia had been honest with Harry about his birth parents. The Addamses respected death too much to deny its reality. "Do you think my birth parents would have let me use the catapult?" Harry asked, brushing leaves from his black shorts. "Perhaps not," Morticia said, appearing soundlessly beside them. "But they died bravely protecting you. That makes them honorary Addamses in spirit." "Mother, father," Wednesday approached, her face as expressionless as ever despite the crossbow in her hands. "Pugsley is stuck in the quicksand again." Harry brightened. "Can I help pull him out? Last time I got to use the python as a rope." "Of course, dear," Morticia smiled indulgently. "Just be back in time for fencing lessons with your father." As the children raced off, Morticia turned to her husband. He's adapting so well to our ways. Did you see him yesterday in the electric chair? Gomez beamed with paternal pride. Laughed the whole time. Magnificent pain threshold. Yet he still has that light in him, Morticia observed. His mother's gift, I suspect. Balance, cara mia, Gomez kissed her hand fervently. The boy walks the exquisite line between light and dark. By age 7, Harry had grown into a peculiar but happy child. His wild black hair refused to be tamed, much like his spirit. The lightning scar on his forehead was a source of pride, Addams's appreciated distinctive marks. He wore small round glasses that often sat crooked on his nose from his latest adventure. Harry. Wednesday called from outside his bedroom door. Grandmama wants you for your lessons. Harry looked up from where he was feeding crickets to his pet spider, Aragog. Coming. He raced down the winding staircase, sliding down the last banister section to land at the feet of Lurch, the family butler. Careful, Master Harry, Lurch groaned, steadying the boy with one massive hand. Sorry, Lurch. Harry grinned up at the towering butler. Is Grandmama in the kitchen? Lurch nodded solemnly and pointed. In the kitchen, Grandmama Addams stood over a bubbling cauldron, her wild gray hair sticking out in all directions. Ah, Harry. Right on time. Today we're making a potion that can regrow bones. Harry climbed onto a stool, eyes wide with interest. Like when Pugsley lost his arm in the wood chipper. Exactly. Grandmama cackled. Though that was a simple reattachment. This is for complete regrowth. Much more complex. Harry's magical education had begun early in the Addams household. While other magical children might have displayed accidental magic when frightened or angry, Harry's magic manifested during moments of joy or excitement, levitating during a game of walk the plank over the piranha tank or accidentally turning Pugsley's hair green after a particularly successful prank. Now, the secret is in the timing, Grandmama explained, handing Harry a vial of viscous red liquid. 3 drops, precisely when the moonwort dissolves. Harry counted carefully, his small face screwed up in concentration. The potion turned a perfect shade of ivory. Well done. Grandmama patted his head. You have your mother's touch with potions. Really? Harry's eyes lit up at this connection to Lily Potter. Oh yes. The Blacks kept records of all magical families, she said, stirring the cauldron. Lily Evans was a potions prodigy. And your father, James, was apparently quite the troublemaker. Harry grinned. Just like me. Just like an Addams, Grandmama corrected with a wink. On Harry's 10th birthday, the entire Addams clan gathered in the Great Hall. Cousin ITT chattered excitedly from beside the towering cake shaped like a guillotine. Things scurried about, lighting the black candles with impressive dexterity for a disembodied hand. Make a wish, old sport. Gomez clapped Harry on the shoulder. Harry closed his eyes, thought carefully, then blew out all 10 candles in one breath. What did you wish for? Pugsley asked, already eyeing the slice of cake where the blade would fall. He can't tell you, Bubble, Morticia chided gently. Or it won't come true. After the cake was cut, with an actual descending blade, much to everyone's delight, and the presents were opened, a junior chemistry set from Uncle Fester, complete with uranium samples, a hand-carved wand holder from Lurch, and a set of throwing knives from Wednesday, Gomez pulled Harry aside. I have something special for you, my boy, he said, leading Harry to the library. From a hidden safe behind a portrait of Grandmama from being burned at the stake, Gomez retrieved a small package wrapped in midnight blue paper. This belonged to your father, your birth father. Harry unwrapped it carefully to reveal a shimmering, silvery cloth that seemed to flow like water. An invisibility cloak, Harry breathed, recognizing it from Grandmama's stories. Not just any invisibility cloak, Gomez said, his voice uncharacteristically serious. This one has been in the Potter family for generations. Albus Dumbledore had it when you came to us. He sent it last month with a note saying it was time for it to be returned to you. Dumbledore? Harry frowned. The wizard who left me on the doorstep. The very same, Gomez nodded. I suspect we'll be hearing more from him soon. Gomez was right. Less than a year later, an owl arrived carrying a letter addressed in emerald green ink to Mr. H. Addams, formerly Potter, the East Tower Bedroom 1313, Cemetery Lane, Westfield, New Jersey. The Hogwarts letter had arrived. Hogwarts! Gomez shouted, performing an impromptu flamenco across the breakfast table, narrowly missing the plate of eyeball eggs. Magnificent! My boy, you'll learn the finest magical traditions in Europe. But we were planning to send him to the Salem Institute, Morticia reminded him, sipping her hemlock tea. I want to go to Hogwarts, Harry said decisively. My birth parents went there. And besides, Wednesday says European dungeons have much better ambience. It's true, Wednesday nodded solemnly. American dungeons lack authenticity. Then it's settled. Gomez leapt from the table. We'll leave for London tomorrow. The whole family will go. Should we send word to Dumbledore that we're accepting? Morticia asked. And ruin the surprise? Gomez looked shocked. Where's the fun in that? The next day, the Addams family steamship trunk was packed, an enormous, ancient contraption with tentacles that carried it on command. The entire family traveled by a combination of flue powder and a specially chartered hearse to reach London. The leaky cauldron fell silent as the Addams family entered. Morticia floated in first, her tight black dress trailing along the floor, followed by Gomez in his finest pinstriped suit. Wednesday and Pugsley followed, with Harry between them. Uncle Fester brought up the rear, grinning maniacally at everyone they passed. Bewitching atmosphere, Morticia commented, examining the dusty rafters with approval. Tom the bartender dropped the glass he was polishing. See, can I help you? We require passage to Diagon Alley, Gomez announced, flipping a gold coin in Tom's direction. My son Harry is shopping for Hogwarts supplies. Every head in the pub whipped toward Harry. He'd grown accustomed to the reaction when his name was mentioned in magical spaces. A whispered chorus of Harry Potter and Boy Who Lived followed them to the back alley. They remember your original name, Wednesday observed as Tom tapped the bricks to open the passageway. Fame is a curse. Harry shrugged. I'm Harry Addams now. They'll learn. Diagon Alley spread before them, colorful, chaotic, and magical. The Addams family didn't just walk down the street, they processed, drawing stairs with every step. Gringotts first, Gomez declared. Need to visit both vaults, the Potter Trust and the Addams account. The goblins, unlike the wizards, were unimpressed by the Addams family's Gothic appearance. If anything, they seemed to appreciate the family's direct approach and obvious comfort with sharp objects. Mr. Addams, the head goblin greeted Gomez with a toothy smile. Your family vault has been accumulating interest nicely since your last visit. Splendid. Gomez twirled his mustache. And I understand my son also has a vault from his birth parents. After confirming Harry's identity, which involved a drop of blood and a ceremonial dagger that delighted Wednesday, they were escorted to both vaults. The Potter Trust vault contained a modest but respectable pile of gold. The Addams vault, located in one of the deepest regions of Gringotts, required a dragon to guard it. Dragon Flame, Uncle Fester sighed happily as they passed the beast. Nothing quite like it for lighting cigars. Shopping proceeded in similar fashion. At Madame Malkin's, Harry was fitted for robes while Morticia offered helpful suggestions on making them more flattering to his pallor. At Flourish and Blots, Wednesday disappeared into the restricted section somehow and emerged with 3 books the shopkeeper didn't recall selling her. The wand selection at Ollivander's proved the most interesting stop. The wand maker emerged from the shadows, his silver eyes widening at the sight of the Addams family. I've been expecting you, Mr. Potter," he said softly. "It's Addams now," Harry corrected politely. "Harry Addams." Ollivander's eyes flicked to Gomez and Morticia. "Indeed. How unexpected." Dozens of wands later, Holly and Phoenix Feather found its match with Harry. The golden sparks that erupted from it coalesced into the shape of a raven before dispersing. "Curious," Ollivander murmured. "Very curious." "What's curious?" Harry asked. "The phoenix that donated this feather gave just one other. That feather resides in the wand that gave you that scar." "You don't say." Gomez leaned forward eagerly. "Connected to the wizard who tried to murder him." "How delightfully macabre." Ollivander looked disturbed by Gomez's enthusiasm. "I think we can expect great things from you, Mr. Addams. After all, he who must not be named did great things." "Terrible, yes, but great." "Not to be rude, Mr. Ollivander," Harry said thoughtfully, "but why not name him? Fear of a name just gives him more power." "Exactly right, my boy." Gomez clapped Harry on the shoulder. "Addamses never fear saying names. It's bad form." They left the shop with Ollivander staring after them, looking both intrigued and unsettled. Platform 9 3/4 bustled with activity on September 1st. The Addams family drew stares as usual, particularly when Uncle Fester decided to help load trunks onto the train by charging himself up and using his mouth as a crane attachment. "Now remember," Morticia adjusted Harry's already perfect collar, "if anyone tries to bully you, start with the thumbscrews, only escalate to poison if necessary," Harry recited dutifully. "That's my boy," Gomez wiped away a proud tear. "And write to us about the ghosts," Wednesday insisted. "I want to know if they're as prestigious as you claim." "And the giant squid," Pugsley added. Harry hugged each of his family members. When he came to Lurch, the butler bent down and patted his head gently. "Master Harry will do well," Lurch rumbled. "Thanks, Lurch," Harry grinned. "I'll miss your cookies." The train whistle blew, and with final waves to his family, Harry boarded the Hogwarts Express. He found an empty compartment and settled in, Hedwig's cage beside him. The snowy owl had been a gift from the entire family, chosen specifically because, as Morticia put it, she has eyes that can pierce the soul. The compartment door slid open, and a red-haired boy poked his head in. "Anyone sitting there?" He pointed to the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." "Help yourself," Harry gestured to the seat. "I'm Ron, by the way." "Ron Weasley." "Harry Addams." Ron's eyes widened. "Are you really Harry Potter?" "Technically, I was born Harry Potter," Harry explained calmly. "But I've been Harry Addams since I was a year old. My family adopted me after Voldemort killed my birth parents." Ron gasped at the name. "You said you know whose name?" Harry shrugged. "My father says fearing a name just gives more power to the person." "Your father sounds mental," Ron blurted, then immediately looked horrified at himself. "Sorry. I didn't mean," Harry laughed. "No, he absolutely is. The whole family is. It's our greatest quality." The compartment door slid open again, revealing a girl with bushy hair and rather large front teeth. "Has anyone seen a toad?" "A boy named Neville's lost one." "No toads here," Harry replied. "Though I'd check the luggage compartment. Toads like dark, enclosed spaces. At home, they're always getting into the Iron Maiden." The girl's expression froze somewhere between curiosity and alarm. "The what?" "Iron Maiden. Medieval torture device. We keep ours in the playroom." She stared at him. "Are you joking?" "No, it's actually in the playroom. Though sometimes we move it to the conservatory in winter." Ron snorted with barely suppressed laughter. The girl drew herself up. "I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Harry Addams. And this is Ron Weasley." Recognition flashed in Hermione's eyes. Harry Potter. I've read all about you. You're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and, they probably got it wrong, Harry interrupted politely. I've been with the Addams family since I was a baby. Most wizards don't know anything about me. The Addams family? Hermione frowned, clearly searching her mental library. I haven't read about them. You wouldn't have, Harry said cheerfully. They're more notorious than famous. Hermione looked like she didn't quite know what to do with this information. Well, I'd better keep looking for Neville's toad. You two should change into your robes. I expect we'll be arriving soon. After she left, Ron turned to Harry. Was that true? About the torture device? Of course, Harry nodded. Wednesday got it for her 8th birthday. It's her favorite. Wednesday? My sister. Well, adopted sister. Ron looked simultaneously horrified and fascinated, an expression Harry was quite familiar with. It tended to follow him everywhere. The Great Hall of Hogwarts exceeded even Harry's expectations. The enchanted ceiling reflected a stormy night sky, complete with flashes of lightning that illuminated the floating candles. Harry approved immensely. They say it's bewitched to look like the sky outside, Hermione whispered. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history. Our family dining room has something similar, Harry replied. Except ours shows the inside of a tomb. Makes dinner more appetizing. Hermione opened her mouth, closed it, then apparently decided not to pursue that line of conversation. Professor McGonagall placed the sorting hat on its stool, and Harry watched with interest as it burst into song. When his name was called, Addams, Harry, formerly Potter, whispers erupted throughout the hall. Did she say Potter? The Harry Potter? Why's his name Addams now? Harry sat calmly as the hat dropped over his eyes. Interesting, said a small voice in his ear. Very interesting. Plenty of courage, I see. A sharp mind, too. There's talent, oh yes, and a thirst to prove yourself. But where to put you? You've been raised by, oh my. The Addamses. That explains the unusual outlook. Harry gripped the edges of the stool, thinking, I just want to be where I'll do best. Where you'll do best, the hat mused. With a mind like yours, better be Ravenclaw. The blue and bronze table erupted in cheers as Harry removed the hat. He glanced at Ron, who looked disappointed but gave him a thumbs up anyway. As he took his seat among the Ravenclaws, he was immediately peppered with questions. Are you really Harry Potter? What happened to your parents? How did you survive the killing curse? Why do you go by Addams now? Harry answered patiently, though he noted with some amusement that his new housemates grew increasingly disturbed as he described his upbringing with the Addams family. Your uncle collects what? One particularly pale girl asked. Exotic carnivorous plants, Harry repeated. He crossbreeds them. My birthday present last year was a Venus flytrap that can digest small mammals. The feast appeared, momentarily distracting everyone from Harry's unusual family stories. He loaded his plate, realizing how much he already missed Grandmama's cooking. The Hogwarts food was excellent but distinctly lacking in Eye of Newt. From the high table, Harry felt someone watching him. Looking up, he met the gaze of a hook-nosed professor with greasy black hair. Who's that teacher talking to Professor Quirrell? He asked an older student. Professor Snape, head of Slytherin House. Teaches potions, but everyone knows he wants the defense against the dark arts job. Harry nodded thoughtfully. At that moment, a sharp pain shot across his scar. He winced, rubbing his forehead. You all right? Asked a fellow first year. Fine, Harry smiled, the pain already fading. Just a headache. Probably excited about exploring the castle, especially if it has proper dungeons. Classes began the next day. Harry discovered that being famous for surviving a killing curse as a baby came with unwanted attention. Students lined up outside classrooms just to get a glimpse of him. People doubled back in hallways to pass him again, whispering and pointing. Harry found the attention bemusing rather than flattering. If they're this excited about a scar, he told Ron at breakfast, they should see Pugsley's collection of burn marks. He's got one shaped exactly like Madagascar on his back. Lessons themselves proved interesting. Astronomy was familiar. Addams as traditionally knew the night sky well for various rituals. Herbology felt like home, though Professor Sprout seemed disturbed by Harry's extensive knowledge of poisonous plants and their uses. History of magic was taught by a ghost, which delighted Harry. Professor Binns, he approached the spectral teacher after their first lesson. Have you ever attempted to possess a living being? My great-aunt Revolta says it's quite invigorating. Binns stared at him in shock before floating away through the blackboard. Charms and transfiguration showed that Harry had inherited his parents' magical talent, though Professor McGonagall seemed torn between approval of his magical ability and concern over his casual suggestion that they transfigure chairs into electric ones, for more comfortable seating. Defense against the dark arts was disappointingly basic. Professor Quirrell, with his pronounced stutter and fear of his own shadow, covered only elementary concepts. Harry raised his hand during the first lesson. P.S., Mr. A. Addams. I was wondering when we'll cover the unforgivable curses. My Uncle Fester has this theory about countering the cruciatus with self-induced electrical shock. The classroom went silent. Quirrell's turban seemed to twitch of its own accord. That's not in the first-year C curriculum, Mr. Addams, Quirrell stammered. And I'd appreciate no more questions about such dark magic. But it was potions that proved most intriguing. Professor Snape started the class with roll call, pausing at Harry's name. Ah, yes, he said softly. Harry Potter. Our new celebrity. It's Addams now, Professor, Harry corrected politely. I was adopted. Snape's black eyes narrowed. How convenient. Tell me, Mr. Addams, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Harry brightened. This was familiar territory from Grandmama's lessons. The draught of living death, sir. My grandmother makes it every Halloween. Says it's perfect for family reunions, the living and the dead together at last. A flicker of surprise crossed Snape's face before his expression hardened again. Where would you look if I told you to find a bezoar? The stomach of a goat, sir. Though Uncle Fester prefers to farm his own by feeding small gemstones to our herd of mountain goats. Says the stomach acids give them extra potency. The class was now watching the exchange like a tennis match. Snape's lip curled. What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane? Harry smiled. They're the same plant, sir. Also called aconite. Wednesday grows it in her garden. Makes a lovely poison for her doll's tea parties. Silence fell. Snape stared at Harry for a long moment. Well, why aren't the rest of you writing this down? He snapped suddenly at the class. Then, turning back to Harry, your family seems unusually well-versed in potions ingredients, Mr. Addams. Oh yes, Harry nodded enthusiastically. Grandmama says potions are just cooking with intent. She's been teaching me since I was 5. For just a moment, something like genuine curiosity crossed Snape's face. I see. 1 point to Ravenclaw for coming prepared, he said grudgingly. By the end of the first week, Harry had developed an unexpected friendship with Ron despite their different houses. They were joined occasionally by Hermione Granger, who seemed torn between scholarly fascination with Harry's unusual knowledge and moral concern over his family's apparent disregard for safety regulations. You can't seriously tell me your family keeps a pet lion, she said one afternoon as they studied in the library. Of course not, Harry replied, and Hermione looked relieved until he added, Kitty Cat is a full-grown Siberian tiger. Father won her in a game of poker in Budapest. Ron snorted into his Transfiguration textbook while Hermione looked aghast. That can't be legal. Harry shrugged. The man shouldn't have bet what he couldn't afford to lose. Besides, Kitty was being mistreated at the circus. She's much happier with us. Pugsley lets her chase him every Thursday. Before Hermione could respond, Harry spotted a small article in the Daily Prophet Ron had opened beside his homework. "Can I see that?" he asked, pointing to the paper. The headline read, "Gringotts break-in latest." Harry read about an attempted robbery of a high-security vault on July 31st, his birthday. "That's odd," Harry frowned. "That's the day Hagrid took me to Diagon Alley to get my supplies." "Who's Hagrid?" Ron asked. "Hogwarts gamekeeper. Dumbledore sent him to check on me after my Hogwarts letter was addressed to the Addams mansion instead of Privet Drive. Nearly fainted when he saw where I was living." Harry remembered the giant man's shock upon entering the Addams family home, particularly when Lurch opened the door and things scampered up to take his enormous coat. "Blimey," Hagrid had whispered, ducking to avoid the stuffed crocodile suspended from the ceiling. "What kind o' place is this?" "Home," Harry had answered simply. Now, staring at the newspaper, Harry felt a tickle of curiosity. The article says nothing was taken because the vault had been emptied earlier that day. "So?" Hermione asked. "So I wonder what was in it," Harry mused. "Something valuable enough to break into Gringotts for. That's supposed to be impossible." "Nothing's impossible," Ron shrugged. "Just improbable. That's what my brother Bill says, and he works for Gringotts." Harry smiled. "That sounds like something my father would say." Halloween arrived with a feast that even Grandmama Addams would approve of. The great hall was decorated with live bats and enormous pumpkins from Hagrid's patch. Harry felt right at home, though he noted the absence of severed limbs among the decorations. The feast was interrupted by Professor Quirrell, who burst into the hall, turban askew and terror on his face. "Troll! In the dungeons! Thought you ought to know." He then fainted dramatically. Panic erupted until Dumbledore shot purple firecrackers from his wand and ordered prefects to lead students back to dormitories. As the Ravenclaws filed out, Harry overheard Ron telling his brother Percy that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom and didn't know about the troll. Without hesitation, Harry slipped away from his house and found Ron. "We need to warn her." Ron looked conflicted but nodded. "Yeah, okay." They hurried to the girls' bathroom, only to discover the troll had found it first. 12 feet tall with granite-gray skin and a tiny bald head, the troll was dragging its massive wooden club as it entered the bathroom where Hermione was hiding. "Distract it," Harry told Ron, who picked up a metal pipe and threw it against the wall. The troll turned, confused, giving Harry time to slip into the bathroom. "Hermione, come on," he urged, finding her pressed against the wall in terror. The troll blocked their exit, advancing on Ron. Without thinking, Harry did what any Addams would do when confronted by a large, dangerous creature. He approached it directly. "Hey," he called, waving his arms. "Over here, you overgrown garden gnome." The troll turned its tiny eyes toward Harry, who now stood directly beneath it. "Harry, what are you doing?" Hermione screamed. But Harry merely grinned, a wild, Addams family grin. "When in doubt, go for the kneecaps," he muttered, recalling Uncle Fester's advice about fighting larger opponents. As the troll raised its club, Harry darted between its legs and jabbed his wand into the back of its knee, shouting the first spell that came to mind, Wingardium Leviosa. The effect wasn't what he expected. Rather than levitating the troll, the spell created a strange reaction with the troll's magic-resistant hide. A shower of green sparks erupted from the contact point, causing the troll to howl in pain and drop its club, directly onto its own head. The massive creature swayed, then collapsed with a crash that shook the entire bathroom. "Is it dead?" Hermione whispered, crawling out from under a sink. Harry poked the troll with his foot. "Just knocked out, I think." "Shame. Wednesday would have loved a troll skull for her collection." Ron stared at him in disbelief. That was mental. Brilliant, but mental. Before they could discuss it further, Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell arrived at the scene. McGonagall's lips were pressed into a thin white line as she surveyed the unconscious troll and the 3 first years. "What on earth were you thinking?" she demanded. "You're lucky you weren't killed." To everyone's surprise, Hermione spoke up. "Please, Professor McGonagall, they were looking for me. I went looking for the troll because I thought I could deal with it on my own. If they hadn't found me, I'd be dead now." Harry and Ron tried to hide their shock at Hermione's lie. "Well, in that case," McGonagall said, "Miss Granger, you foolish girl, 5 points from Gryffindor. As for you two," she turned to Harry and Ron, 5 points, to Ravenclaw and Gryffindor. For sheer dumb luck. As they left the bathroom, Harry noticed Snape's leg was bleeding. The professor quickly covered it with his robes, scowling at Harry when he caught him looking. "That was weird," he commented once they were safely away from the teachers. "Why would Snape be bleeding?" "Who cares," said Ron. "Mental, that's what this whole night was." But Harry cared. It was a curious detail, and if there was one thing Harry had inherited from both his birth parents and his adoptive family, it was curiosity. The first Quidditch match of the season, Gryffindor vs Slytherin, found Harry sitting with Ron in the Gryffindor stands, despite being a Ravenclaw. He'd wrapped a red and gold scarf over his blue and bronze one, explaining, "Addams appreciate house pride, but friendship comes first." The match began with Lee Jordan's colorful commentary. Harry watched, fascinated by the speed and danger of the game. He made a mental note to write home about it. Pugsley would love the Bludgers. Halfway through the match, Harry's broom began to vibrate beneath him. At first, he thought someone was shaking the stands, but then he realized it was his borrowed binoculars trembling. Following their direction, he spotted Professor Snape in the teacher's stands, staring unblinkingly at the Gryffindor seeker and muttering continuously. "Look at Snape," Harry nudged Ron, passing him the binoculars. "Blimey, what's he doing?" Ron frowned. "Looks like he's jinxing the broom." The Gryffindor seeker was indeed having trouble, his broom was jerking violently, trying to buck him off. "Leave it to me," Hermione said, having overheard them. She disappeared, reappearing minutes later in the teacher's stands. Harry watched as she crept beneath the seats and set fire to Snape's robes. It worked. Snape broke eye contact to stamp out the flames, and the seeker regained control, promptly catching the snitch and winning the game for Gryffindor. Later, as they walked with Hagrid back to his hut for tea, they debated what they'd seen. "It was Snape," Ron insisted. "We saw him cursing the broom." "Rubbish," Hagrid dismissed. "Why would Snape do something like that?" "I found out he tried to get past that 3-headed dog on Halloween," Harry said suddenly. "That's how his leg was injured." Hagrid dropped his teapot. "How do you know about Fluffy?" "Fluffy?" Ron echoed incredulously. "That thing has a name." Hermione added. "Course he does, he's mine," Hagrid said proudly. "Bought him off a Greek chappie I met in the pub last year." "He's magnificent," Harry said sincerely. "Reminds me of Great Aunt Vendetta's pet Cerberus. Though hers was more slobbery." Hagrid looked momentarily pleased before remembering to be stern. "Now, Don, go pokin' around Fluffy. That's dangerous. What he's guardin' is strictly between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel." Nicholas Flamel. Harry perked up immediately. "The alchemist? Creator of the Philosopher's Stone?" Hagrid looked thunderstruck. "How did you know that?" "Grandmama has his treatise on metallurgical transmutation," Harry shrugged. "It's her bedtime reading." Ron and Hermione stared at him. "What exactly is the Philosopher's Stone?" Hermione asked. "It transforms any metal into pure gold and produces the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal," Harry explained. "Grandmama says it's a fascinating concept but lacks aesthetic appeal. She prefers mortality," says it gives life its exquisite bittersweetness. Hagrid groaned, burying his face in his enormous hands. I shouldn't ha' told ya that. I should not have told ya that. Christmas approached, bringing with it a blanket of snow over the Hogwarts grounds. Harry signed up to stay at school over the holidays, as the Addams family was visiting relatives in the Carpathian Mountains for their annual vampire hunt. You're welcome to join us next year, Harry told Ron and Hermione as they boarded the Hogwarts Express. Grandmama makes the best blood pudding for the occasion. I'll think about it, Hermione said weakly. Ron just shook his head. Mental. Your whole family is mental. Thank you, Harry beamed, taking it as the compliment it was. On Christmas morning, Harry woke to a small pile of presents at the foot of his bed. From Hagrid, a roughly carved wooden flute. From Ron's mother, a hand-knitted emerald green sweater and homemade fudge. Hermione had given him a book on famous dark wizards throughout history with a note, since you're so interested in the subject. Try not to get too many ideas. Hermione. The Addams family package was substantial, a box filled with Grandmama's special cookies, thankfully non-toxic for sharing, a set of silver throwing stars from Wednesday, for educational purposes only, her note read, and a vial of mysterious blue liquid from Uncle Fester labeled, in case of emergencies or boring classes. The final package was small and light. Harry unwrapped it to find a fluid, silvery gray cloth that slithered through his fingers like water. A note fell out, your father left this in my possession before he died. It is time it was returned to you. Use it well. A very Merry Christmas to you. An invisibility cloak. Harry whispered, swinging it around his shoulders. His body vanished completely. Uncle Gomez was right, Dumbledore did have it. That night, Harry couldn't resist testing his new cloak. He slipped out of Ravenclaw Tower and wandered the darkened corridors, reveling in the freedom of invisibility. He avoided Filch and Mrs. Norris, explored secret passageways, and eventually found himself in an unused classroom. Against the wall stood a magnificent mirror, as high as the ceiling, with an ornate gold frame and an inscription, Eris stra eru oit ube kafru oit on wosi. I show not your face but your heart's desire, Harry read backward, immediately recognizing the mirror's purpose. A desire mirror. We have a smaller version in the attic. Curious, he stepped in front of it. At first, he saw only his reflection, but then the image changed. He was still there, but no longer alone. On either side of him stood a man and a woman, his birth parents, James and Lily Potter. Behind them stood the entire Addams clan, all together as one strange, wonderful family. Harry sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the image. He wasn't surprised by what he saw, family had always been his heart's desire. What touched him was seeing both families united, the Potters and the Addamses together, accepting each other despite their differences. I see you've discovered the Mirror of Erised, came a quiet voice from behind him. Harry turned to see Albus Dumbledore, wearing a purple dressing gown and a curious expression. Hello, Professor, Harry said calmly, not bothering to explain his nighttime wandering. It shows what you most desire, doesn't it? Indeed. Dumbledore sat beside Harry on the floor. But remember, this mirror gives us neither knowledge nor truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they see. Like Uncle Fester with the electric chair, Harry nodded sagely. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. An interesting comparison, Mr. Addams. He studied Harry over his half-moon spectacles. May I ask what you see in the mirror? My family's, Harry said simply. The one I lost and the one I found. Together. Something like approval flickered in Dumbledore's eyes. A most worthy desire. The mirror will be moved to a new home tomorrow, Harry. I ask you not to go looking for it again. Yes, Professor. Harry stood, gathering his invisibility cloak. Can I ask what you see when you look in the mirror? I see myself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks, Dumbledore smiled. One can never have enough socks. Harry knew this wasn't the truth, but he appreciated the deflection. Grandmama knits excellent socks, sir. I'll send you a pair for your birthday. Dumbledore chuckled. That would be most welcome, Harry. Now, perhaps you should use that remarkable cloak to return to your dormitory. As Harry slipped back through the corridors, he reflected on the strange encounter. Dumbledore hadn't punished him for being out of bed, hadn't even seemed surprised to find him with the invisibility cloak. It was almost as if he'd expected it. Curiouser and curiouser. The rest of the school year brought increasing mysteries. Harry, Ron, and Hermione pieced together that the Philosopher's Stone was indeed hidden at Hogwarts, and someone was trying to steal it, most likely Snape, though Hermione had her doubts. They discovered Hagrid had acquired a dragon egg, which eventually hatched into a Norwegian Ridgeback. Harry had been delighted, immediately naming it Fong Jr., despite Hagrid's preference for Norbert. When the dragon became too difficult to hide, they arranged for Ron's brother Charlie to take it to Romania. Finally, after discovering that Dumbledore had been called away to the ministry, the trio became convinced the stone would be stolen that very night. Unable to convince any teachers of the danger, they decided to go through the trapdoor beneath Fluffy themselves. Are you sure about this? Hermione asked as they prepared to leave Gryffindor Tower under the invisibility cloak. We could be expelled, or worse, killed. Either would make an interesting story, Harry said cheerfully. Though my family would prefer I return in one piece. Mental, Ron muttered, his usual refrain when Harry said something particularly Addams-like. Getting past Fluffy proved simple once Harry pulled out the flute Hagrid had given him for Christmas. The three-headed dog fell asleep to Harry's untrained melody, allowing them to slip through the trapdoor into a bed of devil's snare. This is perfectly pleasant, Harry commented as the plant began wrapping tendrils around them. Reminds me of Morticia's conservatory. Hermione, who was struggling against the plant, looked at him incredulously. Pleasant? It's trying to kill us. Oh, right. Not everyone enjoys strangulation. Harry recalled one of Grandmama's lessons. Devil's snare hates light and warmth. Hermione immediately conjured bluebell flames, forcing the plant to release them. They dropped down to a stone passageway below. The next chamber contained flying keys. After a brief consultation, they determined they needed a large, old-fashioned silver key to open the door. Harry, who had developed excellent reflexes from dodging Wednesday's crossbow bolts over the years, caught it quickly on one of the provided broomsticks. A giant chess set followed, where Ron's strategic mind proved invaluable. He sacrificed himself to win the game, getting knocked unconscious in the process. You go on, Hermione told Harry after ensuring Ron was only stunned. I'll stay with him. Harry continued alone, passing an unconscious troll, much to his disappointment. He'd been hoping to bring back a tooth for Wednesday, and solving Snape's logic puzzle to pass through the flames. In the final chamber, Harry found not Snape but Professor Quirrell, standing before the Mirror of Erised. You! Harry exclaimed. But I thought, Snape, yes, Severus does seem the type, doesn't he? Quirrell laughed coldly, his stutter completely gone. Next to him, who would suspect P.P. Poor, St. Stuttering P. Professor Quirrell? That's a good point, Harry acknowledged, genuinely impressed by the misdirection. My Aunt Ophelia always says the best place to hide is in plain sight. Usually right before she disappears into the wallpaper. Quirrell looked momentarily nonplussed before focusing on the mirror again. I see the stone. I'm presenting it to my master, but how do I get it? Use the boy, came a high, cold voice from seemingly nowhere. Quirrell seized Harry and forced him in front of the mirror. Look. What do you see? Harry gazed into the glass. His reflection smiled at him, then reached into its pocket and pulled out a blood-red stone. The reflection winked and put the stone back, and as it did so, Harry felt the real stone drop into his actual pocket. Well? Quirrell demanded impatiently. What do you see? Harry thought quickly. I see myself having tea with Voldemort, he improvised. We're discussing necromancy over crumpets. He lies. The high voice hissed. Let me speak to him, face to face. Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough, for this. Harry watched with fascination as Quirrell unwrapped his turban, revealing a second face on the back of his head, chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils. Harry Potter, it whispered. It's Addams now, actually, Harry corrected politely. But you must be Lord Voldemort. I've heard so much about you. Your work with Inferi is particularly impressive, though Uncle Fester says your reanimation technique lacks finesse. Voldemort's red eyes widened in surprise. You do not fear me. Fear you? Harry laughed, a genuine Addams laugh that echoed off the chamber walls. Why would I fear death? In my family, death is just another state of being. Great-grandfather Addams has been dead for decades, and he still comes to Sunday dinner. For perhaps the first time in his existence, Lord Voldemort seemed utterly at a loss for words. Now, killing my birth parents, Harry continued conversationally, that was rather rude. But I understand you had your reasons. Power, immortality, the usual Dark Lord ambitions. You understand? Voldemort sounded almost uncertain. Of course. Though personally, I think immortality sounds dreadfully boring. Where's the exquisite thrill of danger if there's no possibility of death? Voldemort's face contorted with rage. Give me the stone in your pocket, boy. Oh, you noticed that? Harry pulled out the Philosopher's Stone, examining it with interest. It's rather gaudy, isn't it? Not really my style. Give it to me. Voldemort shrieked. Now you're just being impolite, Harry sighed. My mother always says that proper manners are essential, even when committing heinous acts. Seize him. Voldemort commanded, and Quirrell lunged forward. The moment Quirrell's hands closed around Harry's throat, he screamed in pain. His hands blistered and burned where they touched Harry's skin. Master! I cannot touch him! Quirrell cried. Harry looked down at his own unmarked neck, then at Quirrell's burned hands. Interesting, he mused. Seems my skin disagrees with you. Must be my mother's protection, her love. That, or Grandmama's special bath oils. They do contain some unusual ingredients. Kill him! Voldemort shrieked. Quirrell raised his wand, but Harry was faster. He leapt forward, pressing his hands to Quirrell's face. The professor howled in agony as his skin blistered and cracked under Harry's touch. This reminds me of Uncle Fester's party trick with the light bulbs, Harry commented as Quirrell collapsed, his body literally crumbling to dust beneath his hands. The last thing Harry saw before losing consciousness was a wraith-like form of Voldemort rising from Quirrell's remains, screaming in fury as it passed through Harry's body and vanished through the wall. His last coherent thought was, Wednesday is never going to believe this. Harry woke in the hospital wing, surrounded by what appeared to be half the contents of Honeyduke's sweet shop. At his bedside sat Albus Dumbledore, looking both relieved and curious. Good afternoon, Harry, the headmaster greeted him. Hello, Professor, Harry replied, reaching for his glasses. Did I miss anything interesting? Dumbledore chuckled. Only 3 days of end-of-term excitement. Your friends Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger will be most relieved you've awakened. And the stone? Destroyed, with Nicholas Flamel's blessing. Harry nodded. Probably for the best. Though I had considered asking if I could keep a small piece for Grandmama's collection. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. I'm afraid that wasn't possible. Now, Harry, I must ask, what happened in the chamber with Professor Quirrell and Voldemort? Harry recounted the encounter, including his unusual conversation with the Dark Lord. Dumbledore listened intently, his expression growing increasingly intrigued. Most fascinating, he said when Harry finished. You spoke to Lord Voldemort about death as if discussing the weather. Should I not have? Harry asked, genuinely curious. On the contrary, Dumbledore smiled, I believe your unique perspective may be precisely what rattled him. You see, Voldemort fears death above all else. That explains a lot, Harry nodded thoughtfully. Father always says people who fear death become slaves to that fear. Your father sounds like a wise man. Oh, he's completely mad, Harry grinned. But the best people are, aren't they? Dumbledore's laugh filled the hospital wing. Indeed they are, Harry. Indeed they are. At the end of your feast, Ravenclaw's blue and bronze decorations adorned the Great Hall. They had won the House Cup by a narrow margin over Slytherin. Harry celebrated with his housemates while exchanging conspiratorial winks with Ron and Hermione at the Gryffindor table. As the Hogwarts Express carried them back to London, Harry, Ron, and Hermione shared a compartment, discussing their plans for the summer. You must both come visit the mansion, Harry insisted. I've told everyone about you. I'd like to meet your family, Hermione said carefully. Though perhaps in a public place first. Ron snorted. My mum would have kittens if she knew half the things you've told us about your home. Bring her too, Harry said cheerfully. Mother would love to exchange recipes. As the train pulled into King's Cross, Harry spotted his family immediately on the platform. They weren't difficult to miss. Gomez in his pinstriped suit, Morticia in her flowing black gown, Wednesday looking solemn with her headless doll, Pugsley with what appeared to be dynamite sticks poking from his pockets, and Uncle Fester whose bald head was literally glowing with excitement. There they are, Harry beamed with pride. My family. Blimey, Ron whispered. They're exactly like you described. Harry. Gomez shouted, waving frantically. Come tell us everything. Did you encounter any proper dungeons? Make any enemies? Face death in glorious combat? As Harry bid farewell to his friends and joined his waiting family, he felt a surge of contentment. He had survived his first year at Hogwarts, faced Voldemort, and discovered that being an Addams gave him unique advantages in the wizarding world. You know, he told Wednesday as they left the station, I think Lord Voldemort might come back someday. He seemed the persistent type. Wednesday's lips curved into a rare smile. Good. Next time, bring back a souvenir. Harry patted his pocket, where he'd tucked a small vial containing ashes from Quirrell's robes. Already ahead of you, sister dear. Already ahead of you. Chapter 2, Laughing in the dark summer at the Addams family mansion was exactly what Harry needed after his first year at Hogwarts. The familiar smell of swamp gas from the conservatory, the comfortable screams echoing from the dungeon, and Wednesday's latest experiments with her pet spiders, home sweet home. So then I just grabbed his face and he literally crumbled to dust, Harry explained over breakfast, finishing his tale of confronting Quirrell and Voldemort. Marvelous. Gomez slapped the table with enthusiasm, sending things scurrying for cover. Hand-to-hand combat. The most intimate way to destroy an enemy. And you say this Voldemort fellow fears death? Morticia asked, delicately cutting her blackened toast into precise triangles. According to Dumbledore, it's his greatest weakness, Harry nodded, helping himself to more of Grandmama's special scrambled eggs. Whatever made them that particular shade of green was delicious. How pedestrian, Morticia sighed. Fear of death lacks imagination. I invited Ron and Hermione to visit, Harry mentioned. Though Hermione suggested meeting somewhere public first. They're scared of us, Wednesday stated flatly, feeding a strip of bacon to her pet tarantula. Isn't that wonderful? Gomez beamed. Nothing builds stronger friendships than a healthy dose of terror. Speaking of terror, Grandmama interrupted, shuffling into the dining room with the morning mail. Your Hogwarts letters have arrived. Pugsley, who would be starting his first year, grabbed his letter eagerly. Finally. I can't wait to see these famous Hogwarts dungeons Harry's been talking about. Just remember what I told you about Filch, Harry cautioned his adoptive brother. He doesn't appreciate creativity when it comes to rule-breaking. Noted, Pugsley grinned, patting the pocket where he usually kept his miniature explosives. Harry opened his own letter, scanning the book list for his second year. Lots of Gilderoy Lockhart books. Lockhart? Morticia raised a perfect eyebrow. I believe I've heard of him. Wasn't he the wizard who claimed to have defeated the band in Banshee? That's the one, Grandmama snorted. My friend Esmeralda says he couldn't banish a hiccup, let alone a banshee. Well, this should be interesting, Harry grinned, already imagining what Wednesday would make of such a fraud. The rest of the summer passed in comfortable macabre bliss. Harry practiced Quidditch in the graveyard, the tombstones made excellent obstacle courses, helped Wednesday with her latest botanical experiments, cross-breeding Venus flytraps with Devil's Snare, and enjoyed Grandmama's increasingly advanced potion lessons. When it came time to meet Ron and Hermione in Diagon Alley, Harry was almost disappointed to leave the mansion. Now remember, Morticia said as they prepared to use the Fleur network, if anyone asks about our family traditions, tell them everything in excruciating detail, Harry finished with a grin. I know, Mother. Diagon Alley was bustling with back-to-school shoppers. The Addams family's arrival caused the usual ripple of whispers and stares, but Harry was used to it by now. He spotted Ron's distinctive red hair outside Flourish and Blots. Harry. Ron waved, then froze as he took in the entire Addams clan. Bloody hell, he whispered. Language, Ronald. Hermione appeared beside him, looking nervous but determined as she faced Harry's family. Ron, Hermione. Harry greeted them cheerfully. Meet my family. This is Father, Mother, Wednesday, Pugsley, Uncle Fester, Grandmama, and Lurch is back there carrying the shopping bags. Enchanted. Gomez swept forward, pumping Ron's hand enthusiastically. Harry tells us you're a chess prodigy. You must play against our butler Lurch. He was Transylvanian champion in 1746. 1746. Ron stammered. Give or take a decade, Gomez waved dismissively. Morticia glided forward, extending a pale hand to Hermione. Miss Granger. Harry tells us you're the brightest witch of your age. How refreshing to see young minds not conforming to the vapid standards of beauty and popularity that plague modern society. Hermione blinked, then cautiously shook Morticia's hand. Thank you, Mrs. Addams. That's, actually really nice of you to say. What's that? Uncle Fester pointed to Hermione's parents, who were waiting nervously nearby. Are those muggles? Real muggles? He hurried over to them with alarming enthusiasm. Do you really use electricity for everything? Fascinating. Perhaps we should rescue your friend's parents, Morticia suggested as Mr. Granger backed away from Fester's attempt to demonstrate how he could power their wristwatches with his mouth. The shopping expedition that followed would go down in Diagon Alley legend. Flourish and Blots was hosting a Gilderoy Lockhart book signing, which Gomez declared a magnificent opportunity to study mass delusion in progress. When Lockhart spotted Harry and tried to pull him forward for a photo op, Wednesday silently positioned her headless doll Marie in front of the camera at the last second, causing the photographer's flashbulb to capture Lockhart grinning maniacally next to what appeared to be a decapitation victim. The resulting chaos allowed them to purchase their books in peace, though not before Harry witnessed a tense confrontation between Arthur Weasley and Lucius Malfoy. That was brilliant. Ron exclaimed as they exited the bookshop. Did you see Lockhart's face when he realized what was in the photo? Wednesday has impeccable timing, Harry said proudly. Draco Malfoy, who had been watching the Addams family with a mixture of horror and fascination, finally gathered his courage to approach. So it's true then? Perfect Potter got himself adopted by circus freaks? Before Harry could respond, Wednesday stepped forward, her expression unchanged but somehow more intense. We're not circus freaks, she said flatly. We're much worse. Draco took an involuntary step back. Ah, making friends already, Wednesday. Gomez beamed, completely missing, or ignoring, the hostility. Splendid. You must be Lucius Malfoy's boy. Your father has quite a reputation in certain dark circles. My father, Draco began haughtily, would be welcome at our Halloween séance, Morticia finished for him. We're raising Great-Uncle Balthazar this year. He was beheaded during the Goblin Rebellions, such fascinating dinner conversation. Draco opened and closed his mouth several times, unable to formulate a response, then fled to find his parents. Strange boy, Gomez commented. Didn't even say goodbye. Harry exchanged glances with Ron and Hermione, all three struggling not to laugh. Platform 9 3/4 was crowded as usual on September 1st. The Addams family drew stares as they gathered around Harry and Pugsley. Now remember, Pugsley, Gomez was saying, the best way to make an impression is with a grand entrance. When I attended Ilvermorny, I released 100 bats during the welcoming feast. I've packed some of my special tarantulas in your trunk, Wednesday told her brother. They're trained to respond to whistle commands. Thanks, Wednesday. Pugsley grinned. Oh dear, is that the time? Morticia consulted her wristwatch, which appeared to be counting backward. You'd better board. Lurch, the trunks. The butler groaned and effortlessly lifted both heavy trunks, carrying them to the train while curious students scrambled out of his way. After final goodbyes, including Uncle Fester's whispered instructions for creating dung bombs with extra kick, Harry and Pugsley found Ron saving a compartment. Hermione joined them moments later, already dressed in her school robes. This is going to be a great year, Harry declared, settling in as the train pulled away. I can feel it. As long as nobody tries to kill you this time, Ron pointed out. Harry waved dismissively. Where's the fun in that? The journey passed pleasantly until halfway to Hogwarts, when Harry realized he hadn't seen Pugsley for at least an hour. I should probably find him before something explodes, he sighed, standing up. Too late, Hermione said, pointing out the window where a plume of purple smoke was rising from the luggage car. Harry found Pugsley surrounded by admiring older students as he demonstrated how to create color-changing smoke bombs. Just a small family recipe, Pugsley was explaining modestly. The trick is in the powdered bicorn horn. There you are, Harry said. Come on, we're nearly at Hogwarts. You need to change into your robes. As they walked back to their compartment, Pugsley whispered, This is amazing. I've already got 3 people who want to buy my stink pellets. Harry grinned. Just don't tell Mother you're selling them. She believes in freely sharing family secrets, not commercializing them. When they reached Hogsmeade Station, Harry gave Pugsley an encouraging pat on the shoulder before watching him join the other first-years following Hagrid to the boats. He caught up with Ron and Hermione, and they climbed into a thestral-drawn carriage. You can see them, can't you? Luna Lovegood asked from inside the carriage, noticing Harry's eyes following the skeletal horses. The Thestrals? Yes, Harry nodded, climbing in. They pull the family carriage at home too. Beautiful creatures. Most people are frightened by them, Luna observed dreamily. Most people are frightened by a lot of wonderful things, Harry replied with a shrug. Ron and Hermione exchanged glances, clearly unable to see the creatures in question. At the welcome feast, Harry applauded enthusiastically when the Sorting Hat placed Pugsley in Hufflepuff. Hufflepuff? Ron looked surprised. I'd have bet on Slytherin. Pugsley's actually incredibly loyal and hardworking, Harry explained. He once spent 3 months perfecting a single explosive recipe because Wednesday needed it for a project. When Dumbledore introduced Gilderoy Lockhart as the new defense against the dark arts teacher, Harry noticed the female population of Hogwarts sighing appreciatively at the man's winning smile. This should be interesting, he muttered to his fellow Ravenclaws. Interesting proved an understatement. Their first defense lesson consisted entirely of Lockhart prancing around the classroom, recounting his supposed adventures while checking his reflection in every available surface. When he released a cage of Cornish pixies and promptly lost control of the situation, Harry calmly reached into his robe pocket and pulled out a small vial. "What's that?" Hermione asked as he uncorked it. "Grandmama's special pixie repellent," Harry explained, sprinkling a few drops around them. "Smells like predator pheromones to them." The pixies immediately changed direction, avoiding their corner of the room entirely. Harry offered the vial to Hermione. "Would you like to borrow it? I can get more from home." "That would be very helpful," she admitted, watching Neville being lifted to the chandelier by his ears. As September melted into October, Harry divided his time between classes, helping Pugsley adjust to Hogwarts, and occasional visits to nearly headless Nick, with whom he'd struck up an unusual friendship. "The thing is, Harry," Nick confided during one such visit, "it's the incompleteness of the beheading that bothers me. If it had been done properly, I could join the headless hunt. Have you considered asking the Bloody Baron for assistance?" Harry suggested. "He's rather good with that sort of his." Nick looked thoughtful. "I'm not sure it works that way for ghosts, but I appreciate the creative thinking." It was during their conversation that Harry first heard the voice, cold, murderous, and seemingly coming from inside the walls. Come to me, let me rip you, let me tear you, let me kill you." "Did you hear that?" Harry asked Nick, who looked puzzled. "Hear what, dear boy?" "The voice. It was talking about killing someone." Nick floated closer, concerned. "I didn't hear anything, Harry. Though the castle does have many secrets, not all of them pleasant." Harry heard the voice again while serving detention with Lockhart, punishment for a prank involving Pugsley, 3 salamanders, and Lockhart's hair care products. This time, he followed it, tracing the sinister whispers to a second-floor corridor where he found Ron and Hermione staring at a horrifying sight, Mrs. Norris hanging stiffly from a torch bracket, while foot-high words gleamed on the wall: "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware." "Well," Harry said after a moment of silence, "this is certainly more interesting than Lockhart's fan mail." When the rest of the school discovered the message, panic ensued. Professor Binns was forced to relate the legend of Slytherin's chamber and the monster within, while students began eyeing each other suspiciously, wondering who might be the heir of Slytherin. "It's obviously Malfoy," Ron insisted during one of their library research sessions. "His whole family's been in Slytherin for centuries." "Perhaps," Harry mused, "but claiming a title and actually deserving it are different things. Cousin Itt once claimed to be the heir of Merlin until Great-Aunt Cruella made him take a lineage test. Turned out he was actually related to a famous circus performer who specialized in hair growth charms." "Focus, please," Hermione sighed, surrounded by books about Slytherin's history. "We need to figure out what the monster could be. Something that can petrify its victims," Harry reasoned. "And something I can hear when others can't." A thought struck him. What if I'm hearing it because it's speaking Parseltongue? Ron and Hermione stared at him. "You're a Parselmouth?" Ron asked, suddenly pale. "Of course," Harry shrugged. "All Addamses have an affinity for unusual languages. Mother speaks fluent Mermish. Grandmama can curse in 17 different goblin dialects. I've been chatting with snakes since I was 4. "Harry." Hermione looked exasperated. "That's not a normal magical talent. It's incredibly rare and usually associated with dark wizards." "Really?" Harry looked genuinely surprised. How inconvenient for serpent enthusiasts. When the dueling club was announced, Harry saw it as a perfect opportunity to investigate Malfoy, who had been strutting around the school with increasing smugness. Unfortunately, Lockhart was running the club with assistance from a clearly irritated Snape. "Let me demonstrate with 2 volunteers," Lockhart announced after a disastrous demonstration where Snape blasted him across the stage. Addams, and Malfoy, perhaps." The duel started normally enough, with Harry and Draco bowing reluctantly to each other. But when Malfoy conjured a large black snake that slithered aggressively toward Justin Finch-Fletchley, Harry acted instinctively. "Stop," he commanded in Parseltongue. He's not worth the effort. The snake paused, swaying slightly. Speaker, it hissed back. Why protect the warm blood? Because it would cause too much paperwork, Harry replied reasonably, still in Parseltongue. And I'd rather not have Professor Snape annoyed with me. He grades my potions assignments. The snake seemed to consider this, then reluctantly backed down. Harry looked up to find the entire hall staring at him in horror, except for Snape, who was watching him with calculating interest. What are you playing at? Justin demanded fearfully before fleeing the hall. Was it something I said? Harry asked Ron, genuinely confused. Mate, you were hissing at the snake, Ron explained quietly as whispers erupted around them. Nobody could understand you except the snake itself. Oh. Harry suddenly realized how this looked. That's unfortunate timing. By morning, half the school was convinced Harry was the heir of Slytherin. The other half wasn't sure but was keeping a safe distance just in case. Only the Addams family owl arriving at breakfast with a smoking package for Pugsley prevented Harry from becoming the sole topic of conversation. It's from Uncle Fester, Pugsley announced happily, opening the box to reveal what appeared to be glowing rocks. Uranium samples for my potions project. The nearest Hufflepuffs scrambled to create distance. Is that safe? Hermione whispered to Harry. Relatively, Harry assured her. The glow means it's only mildly radioactive. When it starts pulsing, that's when you should worry. The discovery of Justin Finch Fletchley petrified alongside nearly headless Nick did nothing to help Harry's reputation. Finding himself next to the victims by pure coincidence, Harry was promptly escorted to Dumbledore's office by a grim-faced Professor McGonagall. Left alone in the headmaster's study, Harry admired the collection of silver instruments and ancient artifacts. Reminds me of Grandmama's workroom, he murmured appreciatively, though with fewer shrunken heads. His attention was drawn to a decrepit-looking bird on a golden perch. Hello there, Harry greeted it. You're not looking your best, are you? As if in response, the bird burst into flames. Oh, Harry said calmly. You're a phoenix. How magnificent. I see you're familiar with the phoenix life cycle, Dumbledore's voice came from behind him. Most visitors panic at that particular moment. Uncle Fester briefly kept a phoenix, Harry explained. Until it refused to reignite his cigars and flew away. He was quite disappointed. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled as he settled behind his desk. I've been meaning to ask how your uncle produces those remarkable flames from ordinary objects. Family secret, Harry grinned. Though he'd be delighted to demonstrate at your convenience. Turning serious, Dumbledore asked, Harry, is there anything you wish to tell me? Anything at all about these attacks? Harry considered the question carefully. I've been hearing a voice in the walls, he admitted. A voice no one else seems to hear. I think it's a snake, the monster from the chamber. And I think it's using the plumbing to move around the castle. Dumbledore's expression remained neutral, but his eyes sharpened with interest. That's a very astute observation, Harry. Also, Harry added, I don't believe Hagrid was responsible for opening the chamber 50 years ago. He loves dangerous creatures, certainly, but he'd never set one loose to intentionally harm students. You've been investigating the previous opening? Dumbledore didn't sound surprised. Hermione is very thorough with her research, Harry explained. And the trophy room contains some interesting historical records. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. You continue to surprise me, Harry. Most students accused of being the heir of Slytherin might be defensive or afraid. Harry shrugged. The Addams family motto is, Sic Gorgiemus allos subjectados nunc, we gladly feast on those who would subdue us. Being feared can be quite useful. Though in this case, I'd rather find the actual culprit before anyone gets hurt beyond repair. A noble sentiment, Dumbledore nodded. Very well. You may go, but please keep me informed of any new voices you might hear. The attacks continued sporadically throughout the winter. Harry, Ron, and Hermione intensified their investigation, brewing Polyjuice Potion to infiltrate the Slytherin common room. The plan worked perfectly until Hermione accidentally used cat hair instead of human hair for her portion. Fascinating transformation, Harry commented as they visited her in the hospital wing, where she was slowly recovering from her partial feline metamorphosis. If you could control it, you'd make an excellent cat burglar. Not helping, Harry, Hermione groaned, still sporting whiskers and fur. Their Slytherin infiltration had proven Malfoy wasn't the heir, sending them back to square one. The breakthrough came when Harry found a small black diary among Moaning Myrtle's flooded bathroom belongings, a diary belonging to T.M. Riddle. The date significant, Harry pointed out. 50 years ago, when the chamber was last opened. But it's completely blank, Ron said, flipping through the empty pages. Harry studied the diary thoughtfully. Things aren't always what they seem. At home, we have a book that only reveals its contents when fed a drop of blood. Out of curiosity, Harry wrote in the diary, "My name is Harry Addams." To their amazement, the ink was absorbed into the page, and new words appeared, "Hello, Harry Addams. My name is Tom Riddle. How did you come by my diary? It's responding." Hermione gasped, momentarily forgetting her whiskers. Harry continued writing, explaining about the attacks at Hogwarts. When Riddle offered to show him his capture of the person who opened the chamber 50 years ago, Harry agreed, finding himself pulled into a memory where Tom Riddle confronted Hagrid with an accusation about harboring a monster. "That's not right," Harry said immediately upon returning to the present. Hagrid was framed. This Riddle character was too smooth, too rehearsed. And the creature he accused Hagrid of keeping was an acromantula. They don't petrify victims. So who is this Riddle? Ron wondered. Harry had a suspicion forming, but kept it to himself. He needed more information. The diary was stolen from Harry's dormitory days later. Then Hermione herself was found petrified, along with a Ravenclaw prefect. With Dumbledore suspended by the governors and Hagrid taken to Azkaban, based on his previous accusation, the school teetered on the edge of closure. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Harry and Ron discovered a crumpled page in Hermione's petrified hand, information about basilisks, with "pipes" scribbled in the margin. "That's it!" Harry exclaimed. "The monster is a basilisk. It kills with its direct gaze, but all these victims only saw it indirectly, through water, a camera lens, or a ghost." "But what about the diary?" Ron asked. "And who's controlling the basilisk?" Before they could pursue this further, an announcement echoed through the castle: all students returned to dormitories immediately. All teachers to the second-floor corridor. Naturally, Harry and Ron did exactly the opposite, sneaking to the corridor to eavesdrop. They discovered a new message written in blood beneath the original warning: "Her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever." "It's Ginny," Ron whispered, his face ashen. "My sister." When Lockhart was assigned to rescue Ginny, Harry and Ron decided to confront the fraud and force him to help them enter the chamber, having deduced it must be accessed through Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. They found Lockhart packing to flee. "Going somewhere, Professor?" Harry asked pleasantly. What followed was a confession of Lockhart's fraudulent career, followed by an attempt to obliviate Harry and Ron that backfired when Ron's broken wand exploded, wiping Lockhart's memory and causing a cave-in that separated Harry from the others. "Go get help," Harry called to Ron through the rock pile. "I'll go on ahead." In Myrtle's bathroom, Harry discovered the entrance by speaking Parseltongue to a snake engraving on a sink. The pipes opened to reveal a massive tunnel, which he slid down into the darkness below. The Chamber of Secrets was magnificent in a macabre way. Enormous serpent statues lined a walkway leading to a massive sculpture of Salazar Slytherin. Before it lay Ginny Weasley, pale and still, with the black diary clutched in her hands. And beside her stood Tom Riddle, not a memory now, but a translucent figure growing more solid by the minute. "She's not dead yet," Riddle said by way of greeting. "But she will be soon. As she grows weaker, I grow stronger." You're draining her life force, Harry observed, approaching cautiously. Fascinating process. My great-uncle Vlad attempted something similar with a cursed music box. Riddle looked momentarily taken aback by Harry's casual tone. You don't seem surprised to see me. I worked out who you are, Harry shrugged. T.M. Riddle. Rearrange the letters and you get, I am Lord Voldemort. A bit pretentious, but I understand the appeal of rebranding. Riddle's eyes narrowed. You speak so casually of the greatest sorcerer who ever lived. Greatest? That's debatable. Certainly one of the most feared, Harry conceded. Though fear and greatness aren't necessarily the same thing. You dare, also, Harry interrupted, you're just a memory preserved in a diary. The real Voldemort is out there somewhere, probably still sharing skulls with incompetent defense professors. Riddle's handsome face contorted with rage. Let's see how brave you are when facing my basilisk. He turned to the statue and hissed in Parseltongue, speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four. The statue's mouth opened, and Harry heard the slithering of an enormous body. He quickly closed his eyes. Don't bother, Riddle laughed coldly. It won't help you now. No one is coming to save you. A musical cry echoed through the chamber as Fawkes the Phoenix swooped in, dropping the sorting hat at Harry's feet before attacking the emerging basilisk's eyes. What's this? Riddle demanded as the Phoenix blinded the giant serpent. No matter, it can still hear you. The basilisk, now enraged and blind, thrashed around the chamber. Harry grabbed the sorting hat, desperate for anything that might help. To his amazement, a ruby-encrusted sword materialized within it. Grandmama always says the best gifts come from the most unexpected packages, Harry muttered, drawing the sword. The battle that followed was chaotic and desperate. The basilisk, guided by Riddle's commands, pursued Harry through the chamber. Using the acoustics to his advantage, Harry climbed atop Slytherin's statue, and when the serpent lunged, he thrust the sword through the roof of its mouth and into its brain. One of the basilisk's fangs sank deep into Harry's arm in its death throes. As he staggered back down to where Ginny lay, he could feel the poison spreading rapidly. Remarkable, he gasped, examining the wound with academic interest. Much faster acting than the venom in Uncle Fester's collection. You're dying, Harry Addams, Riddle observed with satisfaction. Even Dumbledore's bird knows it. Look, it's crying. Indeed, Fawkes had landed beside Harry, pearly tears falling onto his wound. To Riddle's shock, the wound began to heal. Phoenix tears, Harry explained, wiggling his fingers as sensation returned. Healing powers. Basic magical creature knowledge, really. Riddle raised Ginny's wand. No matter. I'll kill you myself. But Harry had noticed the diary lying beside Ginny. Acting on instinct, he grabbed the basilisk fang that had poisoned him and plunged it into the diary's cover. Ink spurted from the book like blood, and Riddle screamed, a terrible, echoing scream that reverberated through the chamber as his form twisted, contorted, and finally exploded into nothingness. Ginny stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Harry? What, where am I? What happened? Just a minor case of possession, Harry assured her, helping her to her feet. Nothing that can't be fixed with a good cup of Grandmama's restorative tea when we get back. The diary, Ginny whispered, tears forming. I didn't mean to, Tom made me, I know, Harry said gently. Magical artifacts with minds of their own are notoriously persuasive. My cousin Lumpy once had a cursed music box that convinced him he was a flamingo for 3 months. His attempt at comfort through comparison seemed to work, as Ginny gave a watery smile. Is that a sword? She asked, noticing the weapon still clutched in Harry's hand. Apparently, Harry examined it with interest. I pulled it from the sorting hat. Quite well balanced, actually. Wednesday would be jealous. With Fawkes' help, they returned to the castle, where the Weasleys, McGonagall, and a newly returned Dumbledore awaited them. The explanations that followed were lengthy, but ultimately resulted in Ginny being sent to the hospital wing for recovery, Harry and Ron receiving special awards for services to the school, and Lucius Malfoy being exposed as the person who slipped the diary to Ginny in the first place. "Most impressive, Harry," Dumbledore said when they were finally alone in his office. "Few grown wizards could have faced what you did in that chamber." Harry shrugged modestly. "I had help. Fawkes, the sword, the sorting hat." "True, but help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who deserve it," Dumbledore smiled. "The sword, incidentally, is Godric Gryffindor's. Only a true Gryffindor could have pulled it from the hat." "But I'm in Ravenclaw," Harry pointed out, confused. "The sorting hat considers many qualities when placing students," Dumbledore explained. "Sometimes the line between houses is flexible. You showed tremendous courage in that chamber, Harry." "I was mostly curious, actually," Harry admitted. "Basilisks are incredibly rare. Grandmama has been trying to acquire basilisk venom for years." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Then perhaps we can arrange for a small vial to be sent to her, with appropriate safety precautions, of course." "She'd be delighted," Harry grinned. The term ended on a high note. The petrified victims were revived with Mandrake restorative draft, Hagrid returned from Azkaban, and exams were cancelled as a school treat. On the train home, Harry sat with Ron, Hermione, Ginny, and Pugsley, who was regaling them with tales of his first year at Hogwarts. And then Professor Sprout said she'd never seen someone so enthusiastic about carnivorous plants before. Pugsley finished proudly. "Sounds like you found your calling," Harry smiled at his brother. "Definitely," Pugsley nodded. "Though I still want to learn more about explosives too." "One thing at a time," Harry advised. "There's 7 years to explore all your interests." "Speaking of interests," Hermione said, "have you heard about the escaped prisoner? It was in the Daily Prophet this morning." "Escaped prisoner?" Harry asked curiously. "Sirius Black," Hermione explained. "Apparently he's the first person ever to escape from Azkaban. They're saying he was one of you-know-who's biggest supporters." Harry's eyes widened with interest. "Really? How fascinating. I wonder how he managed to escape. Uncle Fester always said Azkaban's security was impregnable." "They think he had help," Ron said darkly. "Dark magic or something." "Well, I hope they catch him soon," Hermione frowned. "The paper said he's extremely dangerous." Harry nodded thoughtfully, but his mind was racing. Sirius Black, the name sounded vaguely familiar, like something he'd heard mentioned at home. He made a mental note to ask Gomez and Morticia about it when he got back. Summer at the Addams mansion was never dull, but this particular summer proved especially interesting. Harry's questions about Sirius Black elicited an unexpected reaction from his adoptive parents. "Sirius Black?" Gomez repeated, nearly dropping his rapier during their morning fencing practice. "Why, he's your godfather, my boy." "My godfather?" Harry lowered his own weapon in surprise. "Indeed," Morticia confirmed, entering the conservatory with a basket of freshly clipped hemlock. "Your birth parents named him your guardian should anything happen to them." "But then, why didn't he take me after they died?" Harry asked. Gomez and Morticia exchanged glances. "He was arrested," Morticia explained delicately. "Accused of betraying your parents to Voldemort and killing 13 people with a single curse. That's why we were able to adopt you," Gomez added. "With Black imprisoned and no other provisions in the Potter's will, you became a ward of the magical community. And you happened to find me on the Dursleys' doorstep," Harry nodded, remembering the story. "The best night of treasure hunting in our lives," Gomez beamed, ruffling Harry's hair. "But this news about Black escaping, it's concerning." "Why?" Harry asked. "Because the Ministry believes he escaped to find you," Morticia said calmly. "To finish what his master started." Harry considered this. If he was really their friend, my parents' friend, and then betrayed them, that would make sense. Unless, Gomez twirled his mustache thoughtfully, he didn't betray them at all. Gomez, Morticia cautioned. We shouldn't speculate without evidence. Just thinking aloud, cara mia, Gomez kissed her hand passionately. The Black family has a complicated history, but outright treachery wasn't typically their style. More into torture and creative curses. Harry spent the rest of the summer contemplating this new information. The Addams family took their usual precautions, deadly traps around Harry's bedroom, poisonous plants stationed at all entrances, Thing keeping constant watch, but otherwise treated the situation with their typical nonchalance toward danger. When it came time to return to Hogwarts, the platform was crawling with disguised Aurors. Harry spotted them immediately, their attempts at Muggle clothing were painfully obvious. Remember what we discussed, Morticia said as they prepared to board. If Sirius Black approaches you, hear him out before making any hasty judgments, Harry nodded. And use the two-way mirror if I need to contact you immediately. That's my boy, Gomez beamed. Critical thinking before hexing, but if hexing becomes necessary, aim for the vulnerable areas and don't stop until they're incapacitated, Harry finished with a grin. The journey to Hogwarts took an unexpected turn when the train suddenly stopped in the middle of nowhere, and the temperature plummeted. Frost crept across the windows as dark, hooded figures boarded the train. Dementors, Hermione whispered fearfully. The guards of Azkaban. One such creature paused outside their compartment, its rattling breath sending chills down Harry's spine. As it opened the door and reached out with a scabbed, grey hand, Harry felt an unnatural cold seep into his very soul. Screams echoed in his mind, a woman's screams, and everything went black. He awoke to find a shabbily dressed man offering him chocolate. Eat, the stranger insisted. It helps counteract the effects of the Dementors. Who are you? Harry asked, accepting the chocolate. Remus Lupin, the man introduced himself. Your new defense against the dark arts teacher. And you must be Harry Potter, or Addams, I understand you prefer now. You knew my birth parents? Harry asked, recognizing something in Lupin's eyes when he mentioned the Potter name. James and Lily were among my dearest friends, Lupin confirmed with a sad smile. Though I've been away for many years. Why did the Dementor affect me so strongly? Harry asked, already feeling better as the chocolate worked its magic. Dementors feed on happiness, leaving only your worst memories, Lupin explained. Those with particularly traumatic pasts are more vulnerable to their power. Fascinating, Harry mused. Though not an experience I'd care to repeat. Grandmama would be intrigued by their ability to manipulate emotional states. Lupin gave him an odd look. Your adopted family sounds unique. They are, Harry agreed proudly. You should visit sometime. Uncle Fester would love to discuss dark creatures with you. He has quite a collection. The new term brought significant changes to Hogwarts. Dementors patrolled the boundaries, Professor Lupin proved to be the most competent defense teacher they'd had yet, and Harry discovered a surprising talent for the subject. Excellent work with that red cap, Harry. Lupin praised after one particularly successful lesson. Your curse deflection technique is unusually advanced. Wednesday and I practice dueling at home, Harry explained. She's quite creative with hexes. Lupin seemed torn between professional approval and personal concern. Your sister sounds formidable. She is, Harry confirmed cheerfully. She once made Pugsley's hair fall out for a week after he borrowed her favorite dagger without asking. During their first Hogsmeade weekend, Harry was forced to remain at the castle due to his lack of a signed permission form. While Gomez and Morticia had eagerly signed it, McGonagall had deemed their additional notes, Harry has our blessing to explore any haunted locations, and additional permission for dueling if challenged by locals, concerning enough to invalidate the form entirely. Wandering the empty corridors, Harry encountered the Weasley twins, who presented him with a remarkable gift, the Marauder's Map, a magical document showing every person's location within Hogwarts. This is extraordinary, Harry breathed, watching the tiny labeled dots move around the parchment. The enchantment work must have been incredibly complex. We thought you'd appreciate it, Fred grinned. Especially given your knack for finding trouble, George added. The map proved invaluable when, later that night, Harry spotted a name that shouldn't have been possible, Peter Pettigrew, moving through the corridors near Gryffindor Tower. But Pettigrew is dead, Harry murmured, remembering what he'd learned about Sirius Black's crimes. Black supposedly killed him 12 years ago. This discovery, combined with things Lupin had let slip about his friendship with James Potter, began forming a new theory in Harry's mind. His musings were interrupted when, a week before Christmas, Sirius Black finally made his move, not against Harry, but against Ron's pet rat, Scabbers. The incident was reported as Black attacking the wrong bed in Gryffindor Tower, but Harry wasn't so sure. After Christmas break, during which the Addams family performed their traditional holiday ritual of summoning the ghost of Christmas yet to come for career advice, Harry approached Professor Lupin with his suspicions. "Sir, what if Sirius Black isn't after me at all? What if he's after someone else, someone people believe is already dead?" Lupin went very still. "What are you suggesting, Harry?" "I've seen Peter Pettigrew on a certain map," Harry said carefully. "A map I believe you might be familiar with, Mr. Mooney." The color drained from Lupin's face. "Where did you get?" He stopped, then continued in a lower voice. "Harry, this is a very dangerous line of inquiry. If you have information about Sirius Black, you should take it to Dumbledore immediately." "I will," Harry promised. "Once I'm certain of all the facts." Those facts came together faster than expected when, during the final Quidditch match of the season, which Harry was watching from the stands, he spotted Crookshanks, Hermione's cat, leading a large black dog across the grounds toward the Whomping Willow. Remembering something Lupin had once mentioned about a secret passage beneath the violent tree, Harry slipped away from the crowded stadium. He followed the unlikely pair at a distance, watching as the cat pressed a knot on the tree's trunk, freezing its thrashing branches and allowing the dog to disappear into a gap at its base. Curiouser and curiouser, Harry murmured, waiting until the coast was clear before following the same path. The tunnel led to the Shrieking Shack, the supposedly most haunted building in Britain. Harry, who had grown up surrounded by genuine haunting, found the dilapidated interior rather disappointing. "Not even a proper bloodstain," he sighed, examining a dusty floorboard. Grandmama would be most unimpressed with the spectral resident's lack of effort. A noise from upstairs caught his attention. Drawing his wand, Harry climbed the creaking staircase and pushed open a bedroom door to find, not a dog, but a man. Gaunt and filthy, with matted hair and sunken eyes, but unmistakably human. "Sirius Black, I presume?" Harry said calmly, keeping his wand steady. The man stared at him, emotion flooding his wasted face. "You look so like James," he rasped. "Except the eyes." "My mother's eyes, yes," Harry nodded. "I've heard that before. Now, I believe you owe me an explanation about Peter Pettigrew." Black's expression darkened. "How do you know about Peter?" "I've seen his name on a certain map," Harry explained. "A map created by Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs." Understanding dawned in Black's eyes. "The Marauder's map. James, your father, was Prongs. I'm Padfoot. Remus is Mooney. And Peter. Peter is Wormtail." "An animagus," Harry guessed. "A rat, specifically. Ron's pet rat, Scabbers." "Clever boy," Black's face split into a ghastly approximation of a smile. "Yes, Peter has been hiding as a rat all these years, after framing me for betraying your parents and killing those muggles." The door burst open behind Harry, revealing Professor Lupin. "Sirius," he breathed, lowering his wand. "It was Peter all along, wasn't it? You switched secret keepers." What followed was a detailed explanation of the past, how James, Sirius, and Peter had become animagi to accompany Remus during his werewolf transformations, how Peter had been the Potter's actual secret keeper, and how he had framed Sirius before escaping in rat form. "We need to get Pettigrew," Black insisted. "He's in the castle, in Gryffindor Tower, actually," Harry interrupted. "He's probably with Ron at the Quidditch match. But that should be ending soon." They devised a plan to capture Scabbers and reveal his true identity. However, their plans went awry when they encountered Ron, Hermione, and the rat in question on their way back to the castle. "Harry!" Hermione exclaimed. "What are you doing with, is that Sirius Black?" "It's a long story," Harry began, "but essentially, Scabbers is, he didn't get to finish as the rat bit Ron's hand and made a desperate break for freedom. Black transformed into his dog form and gave chase, with Lupin close behind. In the confusion, they all ended up at the base of the Whomping Willow just as the sun began to set. The moon, Harry noticed suddenly. Professor Lupin hasn't taken his potion tonight. Too late, Lupin began to transform, his body contorting horribly as he became a full werewolf. Black, still in dog form, intercepted the werewolf to protect the students, and in the chaos, Pettigrew managed to transform and escape. "No!" Harry shouted, casting a desperate stunning spell that missed the fleeing rat by inches. But there was no time to pursue him. The werewolf had thrown off Black and was advancing on Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Black was injured, bleeding from multiple bites and scratches. As the werewolf lunged, Harry made a split-second decision. Standing his ground, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver whistle, a gift from Wednesday for emergencies involving large predators. The sound it emitted was beyond human hearing, but the effect on the werewolf was immediate. It yelped in pain and backed away, shaking its head violently before fleeing into the forbidden forest. "Ultrasonic frequencies," Harry explained to his stunned friends. "Painful to canine ears." But their relief was short-lived. The temperature suddenly plummeted as at least 100 Dementors converged on them, attracted by Black's presence. "Expecto Patronum!" Harry shouted, recalling the defensive spell Lupin had been teaching him. A silvery mist erupted from his wand, but it wasn't strong enough to repel so many Dementors. Black collapsed beside them, the Dementors closing in for their kiss. In desperation, Harry tried once more, focusing on his happiest memory, his first day at the Addams mansion, when Gomez and Morticia had shown him his new room, decorated with all manner of wonderfully macabre items, and told him he was home. Expecto Patronum. A massive silver raven burst from his wand, wings spread wide as it soared into the Dementors, driving them back with its radiant light. The bird circled protectively around Harry, Black, and his friends until the last Dementor had fled. Harry barely had time to register his success before exhaustion overtook him. The last thing he remembered was Professor Snape's arrival and the stretchers being conjured to take them back to the castle. He awoke in the hospital wing to find Ron unconscious in a nearby bed and Hermione frantically trying to explain something to him. "Sirius is locked in Professor Flitwick's office," she whispered urgently. "They're going to give him the Dementor's kiss at midnight. Dumbledore believes you about Pettigrew escaping, but without proof, we need to save him," Harry said immediately, sitting up. "But how? The office will be guarded." Dumbledore himself provided the answer, entering with a cryptic suggestion, 3 turns should do it, Miss Granger. Remember, you must not be seen." Once he'd gone, Hermione pulled out a small hourglass on a chain from beneath her robes. "It's a time-turner, Harry. McGonagall gave it to me so I could attend multiple classes simultaneously. We can go back 3 hours and save Sirius." Fascinating, Harry examined the device with interest. "Grandmama has been trying to acquire one of these for years. The Ministry keeps denying her applications." "Probably with good reason," Hermione muttered, throwing the chain around both their necks. "Ready? 3 turns." The world blurred around them, rewinding 3 hours to late afternoon. They narrowly avoided encountering their past selves while ensuring that the sequence of events played out as they remembered, with one crucial difference. When the Dementors descended upon Black and their past selves, Harry realized a startling truth. It wasn't someone else who cast that Patronus, he told Hermione. It was me, future me, right now. With newfound confidence, Harry stepped forward and cast the spell that saved them all. The silver raven erupted from his wand, more powerful than ever, and drove the Dementors away. A raven, Hermione noted as the magnificent bird returned briefly to Harry before dissipating. Appropriate for a Ravenclaw. Actually, Harry smiled, ravens have significant meaning in the Addams family. They're messengers between the worlds of the living and the dead. Their next task was rescuing Sirius. Using Buckbeak the Hippogriff, who had also been sentenced to death that evening, they flew to the window of Flitwick's office and helped Black escape. I don't know how to thank you, Sirius said as they landed briefly in a secluded tower. You're truly your father's son, Harry. I'd like to think I'm a blend of many influences, Harry replied with a smile. The Potters, the Addamses, and now perhaps a touch of the Blacks too, since you are my godfather. About that, Sirius looked uncertain. Once my name is cleared, and it will be, I'll make sure of it, would you perhaps? I mean, I understand you have a family now, but... You'll always have a place in my life, Harry assured him. The Addamses believe family is family, whether by blood, marriage, or choice. You were my parents' choice for me. That matters. Sirius's eyes glistened with tears as he embraced Harry. I'll write when I can. And Harry, your parents would be proud of you. Different as your upbringing has been, you've become exactly the kind of person they hoped you'd be, brave, compassionate, and fiercely loyal. That means a lot, Harry said sincerely. Now go, before the Ministry realizes you're missing. As Sirius flew away on Buckbeak, Harry felt a curious mixture of sadness and hope. The man who could have raised him was now in his life, however complicated that might be. And somewhere out there, Peter Pettigrew was alive, undoubtedly returning to Voldemort. The pieces were moving. The game was becoming more complex. Harry's fourth year at Hogwarts began with the Quidditch World Cup, where the Addams family's presence in the top box caused almost as much commotion as the match itself. Gomez's enthusiastic betting, he placed 1,000 galleons on Ireland to win but Crumb to catch the snitch, exactly what happened. Morticia's commentary on the disappointingly non-fatal bludger hits, and Uncle Fester's attempt to join the Bulgarian team mascots in their fire-breathing display all contributed to an unforgettable experience. The excitement turned sinister when Death Eaters attacked the campsite after the match, torturing Muggles and sending the Dark Mark into the sky. The skull is well executed, Wednesday observed dispassionately as they watched from a safe distance. But the snake lacks anatomical precision. Not now, Wednesday, Harry sighed, keeping a protective eye on Pugsley, who looked far too interested in joining the chaos. Back at school, Dumbledore's announcement of the Triwizard Tournament created a buzz of excitement, though not as much as his introduction of Mad-Eye Moody as the new defense against the dark arts professor. He was a legendary Auror, Hermione explained to Harry and Ron. Half the cells in Azkaban are filled because of him. Uncle Fester mentioned him once, Harry recalled. Said he had admirable paranoia and creative hexing techniques. Moody's classes proved to be exactly as advertised. His demonstration of the unforgivable curses was met with horror by most students, except Harry, who watched with academic interest, particularly during the Imperious Curse demonstration. Mr. Addams, Moody growled when it was Harry's turn. Let's see how you handle this. Imperio. A wonderful floating sensation filled Harry's mind, along with a voice suggesting he should hop on one foot. Immediately, Harry was reminded of a similar sensation from childhood, when Grandmama had taught him to resist Uncle Fester's hypnotic pocket watch. Focus on something unpleasant, her voice echoed in his memory. Something the controller wouldn't expect. Harry deliberately conjured the memory of helping Grandmama clean out her potion ingredients cabinet, specifically the jar of pickled troll eyes that had spilled all over him. The floating feeling wavered, and he remained firmly planted on both feet. Excellent. Moody barked, looking both surprised and pleased. Addams fought it off. They'll have a harder time controlling you. After class, Moody pulled Harry aside. Where did you learn to resist the Imperious Curse, boy? My grandmother taught me to resist hypnotic suggestion, Harry explained. She said it was an essential skill for attending family reunions. Moody's magical eye swiveled to examine Harry more closely. Your family sounds interesting, Addams. They are, Harry agreed proudly. You'd like them, Professor. They appreciate constant vigilance too, though usually in the context of avoiding Great Aunt Dementia's surprise strychnine tests. The Halloween feast brought the selection of Triwizard champions, Victor Crumb from Durmstrang, Fleur Delacour from Beauxbatons, and Cedric Diggory from Hogwarts. But then, unexpectedly, a fourth name emerged from the Goblet of Fire, Harry Addams. I didn't put my name in, Harry said immediately, looking to Dumbledore. Of course you didn't, the headmaster replied grimly. Nevertheless, the magical contract is binding. You must compete. The fallout was immediate and harsh. Most of Hogwarts believed Harry had cheated to enter, including Ron, who wouldn't speak to him. Only Hermione, the Addams family, who sent an enthusiastic congratulatory package of protective amulets and lucky mummified appendages, and, surprisingly, Luna Lovegood stood by him openly. People fear what makes them uncomfortable, Luna observed dreamily as they sat by the lake one afternoon. Your comfort with danger makes them very uncomfortable indeed. That's surprisingly insightful, Luna, Harry smiled. The Nargles told me, she replied seriously. They find your family fascinating. The first task, facing dragons, brought reconciliation with Ron after Harry's unorthodox approach to the challenge. While the other champions used spells to distract or outmaneuver their dragons, Harry walked calmly toward the Hungarian horntail, speaking to it in Parseltongue. Magnificent creature, he hissed respectfully. I mean no harm to you or your eggs. I only need the golden fake. The dragon, surprised to be addressed in a language it understood, tilted its massive head curiously. Speaker, it rumbled back. You smell of death and darkness, yet not like the others of your kind. I was raised by the Addams family, Harry explained conversationally, still advancing slowly. We have a different relationship with darkness. After a tense negotiation involving Harry's promise to send the dragon a regular supply of Grandmama's special fire-enhancing potion, which dragons apparently found delicious, the horntail grudgingly allowed him to take the golden egg. The judges were flabbergasted. Karkaroff tried to argue that Harry had used an unfair advantage, but Dumbledore countered that Parseltongue was simply a skill Harry possessed, no different from Crumb's flying abilities or Fleur's Vela charm. That was bloody brilliant. Ron exclaimed afterward, finally breaking his silence. Talking to a dragon. Only you, Harry. It was the simplest solution, Harry shrugged. Grandmama always says diplomacy should be tried before explosives. The Yule Ball presented a different kind of challenge. Harry initially considered asking Cho Chang, a pretty Ravenclaw in his year, but found himself instead inviting Luna after overhearing some girls mocking her. That's very kind of you, Harry, Luna said when he asked her, but you don't need to take me out of pity. It's not pity, Harry assured her. I genuinely enjoy your company. And Mother always says that the best dance partners are those who hear music others can't. Luna's smile lit up her face. In that case, I'd be delighted. I should warn you, though, my dancing sometimes attracts raxperts. Sounds exciting, Harry grinned. I'll ask Wednesday to send me some repellent, just in case. The ball itself was a surprising success. Luna appeared in robes of shimmering silver that complemented her dreamy personality perfectly. Harry wore formal dress robes that Morticia had specially commissioned, featuring subtle batwing collar details and cufflinks shaped like tiny silver ravens. You dance very well, Luna commented as they waltzed across the Great Hall. Most boys are terrible. Mandatory dance lessons from age 6, Harry explained. Mother insists that proper dancing is essential for formal dueling, funeral processions, and summoning rituals. Your family sounds wonderful, Luna sighed. So much more interesting than most. You should visit sometime, Harry offered. I think Wednesday would like you. Is that a compliment? Luna asked curiously. Harry laughed. From Wednesday? Absolutely. The evening took an interesting turn when Harry overheard an argument between Snape and Karkaroff about signs and his return, clearly referring to Voldemort. Filing this information away, Harry focused on enjoying the rest of the ball, until he spotted Moody's magical eye following him with unusual intensity. Professor Moody seems very interested in you, Luna observed, following Harry's gaze. He's interested in everyone, Harry replied. Constant vigilance and all that. But Luna shook her head. It's different with you. The Nargles say he's not what he seems. Harry considered this. Luna's observations, however strangely expressed, often contained kernels of truth. He resolved to watch Moody more carefully. The second task required retrieving something precious from the Black Lake. When Harry discovered that Luna had been taken as his hostage, he felt a surprising surge of protectiveness. Using gillyweed supplied by Dobby the house elf, who had become devotedly attached to Harry after being freed from the Malfoys, Harry transformed and dove into the lake. The Merpeople's village was hauntingly beautiful in its alien way. Harry found Luna, along with the other hostages, tied to a statue in the village square. After confirming with the Merchiftanus that the "left to die" part of the song was merely dramatic flair, Addams's appreciated accuracy in death threats, Harry freed Luna and began to ascend. He emerged from the lake within the time limit, earning high marks despite refusing to leave until all hostages were safe. Luna, once revived, seemed utterly unfazed by the experience. It was like being in a very deep sleep, she told him afterward. Though the water wraiths were rather chatty. You could hear them while enchanted? Harry asked, surprised. Oh yes, Luna nodded seriously. They said you smell like someone who's already died once. Is that true? Harry considered the killing curse scar on his forehead. In a manner of speaking, I suppose it is. As the final task approached, Harry began experiencing strange dreams, visions of Voldemort and Pettigrew planning something centered around the Triwizard Tournament. When his scar burned painfully during divination, he finally decided to confide in Sirius via their secret communication mirror. Be careful, Harry, his godfather warned, his face grim in the mirror's reflection. Someone entered you in that tournament for a reason, and I doubt it was for your glory. I know, Harry agreed. But who? And why? Keep your eyes open, Sirius advised. And watch your back during the final task. That's when they'll make their move, whatever it is. The night before the third task, Harry received a surprise visit from his family. Dumbledore had arranged for them to attend the final challenge as his personal guests. Harry, darling. Morticia embraced him, her perfume of nightshade and belladonna familiar and comforting. We've missed you terribly. The house hasn't been the same without your screams echoing from the tower bedroom, Gomez added, pumping Harry's hand enthusiastically. Did you bring the special package I asked for? Harry inquired quietly. Wednesday stepped forward, handing him a small black box. Everything you requested. Plus a few extras I thought might be useful. Harry peeked inside to find an assortment of items that would make any ministry official extremely nervous: powdered boomslang skin, a vial of acromantula venom, 3 different invisibility potions, and what appeared to be a shrunken hand clutching a small dagger. The Hand of Glory, Wednesday explained, noticing his attention on the last item. It gives light only to its holder. Useful in emergencies. Perfect, Harry smiled gratefully. I have a feeling I might need these. The maze for the third task was an impressive construction, towering hedges filled with various magical obstacles and creatures. As the champions entered one by one, Harry and Cedric tied for first place. The atmosphere was tense with excitement. Inside the maze, Harry encountered a boggart, which transformed into a Dementor, then shifted confusingly into an ordinary mirror when Harry wasn't afraid, a sphinx with riddles that Harry solved through logic puzzles Grandmama had taught him, and finally a massive blast-ended script that required all his agility to escape. Near the center of the maze, he encountered Cedric struggling against an Imperius-cursed Victor Krum. A quick stunning spell to Krum and the situation was defused. "Thanks," Cedric gasped, recovering his wand. "He just came at me out of nowhere, eyes all glazed over." "Someone's interfering," Harry said grimly. "We should be careful." They agreed to proceed together, eventually reaching the Triwizard Cup simultaneously. "Take it," Cedric offered. "You saved me from Krum." "We'll take it together," Harry countered. A Hogwarts victory either way. As their hands closed around the cup's handles, Harry felt the familiar jerk of a portkey. The maze disappeared as they were whisked away to an unfamiliar graveyard. "Where are we?" Cedric asked, looking around in confusion. Harry's eyes fell on a nearby headstone, Tom Riddle. Cold realization washed over him. "Cedric, we need to get back to the cup. Now." But it was too late. A high voice commanded, "Kill the spare." A flash of green light erupted from the darkness, striking Cedric before either boy could react. Harry watched in horror as his fellow champion crumpled to the ground, dead instantly. "Bind him," the cold voice ordered, and ropes snaked around Harry, securing him to the Riddle headstone. Wormtail emerged from the shadows, carrying a bundle that could only be Voldemort in his diminished form. Harry observed with academic detachment as Wormtail prepared a large cauldron, his mind racing through possible escape scenarios. "Bone of the Father," Wormtail intoned, levitating a bone from the grave beneath Harry's feet. "Flesh of the Servant," he continued, horrifyingly cutting off his own hand. "Blood of the Enemy," he finished, approaching Harry with a dagger. "Interesting ritual components," Harry commented conversationally as Wormtail sliced his arm to collect blood. "Though the proportions seem imprecise. Grandmama would insist on exact measurements." Wormtail ignored him, adding the blood to the cauldron. The potion turned a blinding white before erupting in a cloud of steam. From within the mist rose a tall, skeletal figure with gleaming red eyes and snake-like features, Lord Voldemort, fully restored. "My wand, Wormtail," he commanded, examining his new body with satisfaction. While Voldemort was occupied, Harry discreetly worked his hand into his pocket, where Wednesday's care package waited. His fingers closed around a small vial of instant darkness powder, one of Uncle Fester's special creations. Voldemort turned his attention to Harry, those red eyes gleaming with malice. "Harry Potter," he said softly. "The boy who lived. How fitting that you should witness my rebirth." "It's Addams, actually," Harry corrected calmly. "Harry Addams. And while your resurrection technique is impressive, the aesthetic leaves something to be desired. No offense, but the nose situation is particularly unfortunate." Voldemort's lipless mouth twisted in fury. "You dare mock Lord Voldemort?" "Not mocking," Harry shrugged, as much as the ropes allowed. "Constructive criticism. Grandmama has overseen dozens of reanimations, and she always says attention to detail makes all the difference." "Your insolence will end tonight," Voldemort hissed. "But first, you will duel me. I will prove to my Death Eaters that your survival was merely luck." He flicked his wand, and the ropes binding Harry fell away. Harry stood carefully, his hand still in his pocket. "Before we begin, I'm curious, did you know that ritual you just performed created a connection between us?" Voldemort paused. "What nonsense is this?" "Blood magic," Harry explained, stalling for time as he subtly worked the stopper loose on the vial. "By using my blood unwillingly taken, you've created a magical link. It's basic thaumaturgical principle, any first-year Addams would know it." For a moment, uncertainty flickered in Voldemort's eyes. That moment was all Harry needed. He threw the darkness powder to the ground, instantly engulfing the graveyard in impenetrable blackness. In the confusion, Harry activated the Hand of Glory from Wednesday's package. It illuminated the scene for him alone, leaving Voldemort and the arriving Death Eaters blind and disoriented. Harry sprinted toward Cedric's body, dodging random spells fired in his direction. "Find him!" Voldemort screamed in rage. Harry reached Cedric and grabbed his wrist, then lunged for the nearby Triwizard Cup. As his fingers closed around the handle, he felt the familiar hook behind his navel as the portkey activated once more. They materialized at the edge of the maze to thunderous applause that quickly turned to screams as people realized Cedric was dead. Harry clutched his fellow champion's body, refusing to let go even as Dumbledore and the other teachers rushed forward. "He's back," Harry gasped, looking up at Dumbledore. "Voldemort's back. He killed Cedric." What followed was chaos. Moody pulled Harry away from the crowd, ostensibly to take him to the hospital wing. But instead of heading toward the castle, Moody steered him toward his office, asking increasingly detailed questions about Voldemort's return. Harry, despite his shock, recognized something was wrong. Moody's interest was too intense, too specific. Remembering Luna's warning and Sirius's advice, he reached into his pocket for another of Wednesday's gifts, a small vial of acromantula venom. "Professor," Harry interrupted Moody's questioning, "why are you so interested in how Voldemort returned? Almost as if you were expecting it." Moody's magical eye swiveled to fix on Harry's face. "Clever boy," he growled, raising his wand. "Too clever for your own good." As Moody opened his mouth to cast a spell, Harry flung the venom directly into his face. The effect was immediate, not fatal, as Harry had diluted the venom specifically for this purpose, but enough to cause temporary blindness and intense pain. Moody howled, clawing at his eyes as Harry disarmed him with a quick Expelliarmus. The door burst open moments later, revealing Dumbledore, Snape, and McGonagall. They quickly subdued the incapacitated Moody, with Snape force-feeding him Veritaserum. To everyone's shock, Moody began to transform, the Polyjuice potion wearing off to reveal Barty Crouch Jr., a Death Eater who was supposed to be dead. "I knew something was wrong," Harry explained as Dumbledore bound Crouch with enchanted ropes. He was too interested in Voldemort's return, like he already knew it was going to happen. Under Veritaserum, Crouch confessed everything, impersonating Moody all year, entering Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire, turning the Triwizard Cup into a portkey, all to deliver Harry to Voldemort for the resurrection ritual. After giving his statement to Dumbledore about the graveyard events, Harry was finally taken to the hospital wing. The Addams family was waiting for him, having refused to be sent away despite Madame Pomfrey's protests. "Harry, dear," Morticia embraced him gently. "We heard what happened. Such a tragedy about the Diggory boy. But you survived." Gomez clapped him on the shoulder. "Face down Voldemort himself and lived to tell the tale. That's the Addams spirit." "It was Wednesday's package that saved me," Harry told them, gratefully accepting a restorative potion from Grandmama that smelled slightly of brimstone. "The darkness powder and Hand of Glory were exactly what I needed." "Always be prepared," Wednesday said solemnly from beside his bed. "That's what you taught me." The Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge, refused to believe Harry's account of Voldemort's return, dismissing Crouch as a deranged madman acting alone. The ministry's official position became that Cedric's death was a tragic tournament accident. "Politics," Gomez snorted after Fudge departed. "Always interfering with perfectly good calamities. This denial will only make things worse," Morticia observed. "Fear of truth is far more dangerous than truth itself." As the term ended and students prepared to return home, Harry found himself standing beside Luna on the astronomy tower, watching the Durmstrang ship prepare to depart. "Everything's going to change now, isn't it?" Luna asked softly. "Yes," Harry nodded. "War is coming. Voldemort won't stay hidden for long." "Are you afraid?" she asked, her silvery eyes studying him curiously. Harry considered the question. "Not of dying," he said finally. "The Addamses have always had a comfortable relationship with death. But I am concerned about the people I care about. Voldemort will target them to get to me. Then we'll just have to be ready, Luna said with surprising firmness. I've already started designing protective charms against Raxburts. I'm sure they could be modified to work against Death Eaters. Harry smiled despite everything. I'd like to see that. Maybe you could collaborate with Wednesday on the design. As they left the tower, Harry felt a curious sense of calm despite the storm he knew was coming. Voldemort had returned, but he had also made a critical mistake. He had underestimated Harry because of his age, and he had completely misunderstood what it meant to be an Addams. Fear was Voldemort's greatest weapon, and Harry had been raised to embrace the very things most feared. The game had changed, but Harry had been playing by different rules all along. The summer following Voldemort's return was tense. The Addams family mansion, normally a haven of comfortable chaos, became a fortress of protective enchantments and deadly traps, though, as Gomez cheerfully pointed out, most of those were already in place anyway. Harry maintained regular contact with Sirius, who had gone into hiding at his ancestral home, Grimmauld Place. Through these conversations, Harry learned about the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore's secret organization fighting against Voldemort. I should be there with you, Harry told his godfather during one mirror call. I'm directly involved in this. Dumbledore insists you're safer with your family, Sirius replied, though he didn't look convinced. Though considering what I've heard about your home security measures, he might have a point. Mother's man-eating plants have doubled in size this summer, Harry confirmed. And Uncle Fester has rigged the entire East Wing with something he calls surprise lightning. I'm not entirely clear on how it works, but it's impressively destructive. 2 weeks before term was set to begin, Harry received an urgent message from Dumbledore requesting that he and his family relocate to Grimmauld Place immediately. Voldemort had discovered his location. The Addamses took the news with their typical nonchalance toward danger. What a shame, Morticia sighed as they packed. I was so looking forward to testing the new quicksand trap in the conservatory. Next time, cara mia, Gomez assured her, kissing her arm passionately. The Dark Lord will give us another opportunity, I'm certain. Grimmauld Place proved to be an interesting experience. The ancestral home of the Black family was gloomy, decrepit, and filled with dangerous dark artifacts, in other words, perfectly suited to the Addamses' tastes. Magnificent. Gomez declared upon arrival, admiring the severed house elf heads mounted on the wall. Such commitment to family tradition. The decor has real character, Morticia agreed, trailing her fingers along a cursed candelabra. So rare to find proper appreciation for the macabre these days. Sirius, who had always hated the house, watched in bemusement as the Addams family made themselves at home. Even more surprising was the house's reaction to them. The normally hostile portrait of Walburga Black actually stopped screaming when Grandmama Addams complimented her distinguished decay. Harry was thrilled to be reunited with Ron and Hermione, who were already staying at headquarters with the Weasley family. It's been awful, Hermione whispered as they caught up in the library. The Daily Prophet's been running a smear campaign against you and Dumbledore all summer. They're making you out to be either delusional or attention-seeking. Typical, Harry shrugged. Fear makes people irrational. Father says the first casualty of panic is always reason. Your father's quite wise, Hermione admitted. Though I'm still not sure about that surprise lightning Ron mentioned. Is that even legal? Harry just smiled enigmatically. The Order members were initially wary of the Addams family, particularly Mad-Eye Moody, the real one this time, who kept his magical eye fixed on Uncle Fester at all times. But their expertise in unusual magic and complete fearlessness regarding Voldemort gradually earned respect. Your mother's knowledge of poisonous plants is remarkable, Remus told Harry one evening. She's helped us develop new protective measures for safe houses. Botany is her passion, Harry nodded. The deadlier, the better. The most surprising development was the unlikely friendship that formed between Snape and Grandmama Addams, bonding over rare potion ingredients and creative brewing techniques. Severus has such a lovely grasp of subtle toxins, Grandmama commented approvingly after one order meeting. Reminds me of your grandfather Addams, he could poison a man so gently the victim would thank him for it. As summer waned, Harry's thoughts turned increasingly toward Hogwarts and the coming conflict. Despite Dumbledore's protection, he knew Voldemort wouldn't remain inactive for long. The night before returning to school, Harry found himself alone with Sirius in the drawing room. "I wanted to give you something," his godfather said, handing him a small package. "It's a two-way mirror, matching the one you already have from your parents. This one is keyed specifically to me. If you need anything at all, just say my name into it, and I'll appear." "Thank you," Harry said, genuinely touched. "I know being stuck here is difficult for you." Sirius sighed, glancing around the house he despised. "Your family has made it more bearable, oddly enough. Your Uncle Fester convinced Creature to show him the family potion laboratory in the cellar. They've been down there for hours doing Merlin knows what." "Probably best not to ask too many questions," Harry advised with a grin. The following morning, the Addamses accompanied Harry to King's Cross, creating quite a stir on platform 9 3/4. Morticia's flowing black gown and Gomez's pinstriped suit might have passed for eccentric Muggle fashion, but Uncle Fester's bald head glowing with excitement and Wednesday's silent, unblinking stare at passing first years were harder to explain. "Remember what we discussed," Morticia said as Harry prepared to board the train. "If Voldemort attempts to enter your mind, focus on the family graveyard visualization exercise." Harry nodded. "Grandmama says it's particularly effective against legilimency. And take this," Wednesday pressed a small black box into his hand. "New prototype. Should work against most magical eavesdropping." "Thanks, Wednesday," Harry hugged his sister, one of the few people permitted such contact without risking bodily harm. On the train, Harry found a compartment with Luna, Neville, Ginny, and eventually Ron and Hermione, after their prefect duties. Luna was reading the Quibbler upside down as usual, but lowered it when Harry entered. "Your aura is different," she observed dreamily. "More shadows around the edges." "Probably the weight of impending doom," Harry replied cheerfully, settling beside her. "How was your summer?" "Productive," Luna smiled. "Daddy and I went hunting for crumplehorn snorkax in Sweden." "Find any?" Harry asked with genuine interest. "Not this time," she sighed. "But we did discover a new type of singing mushroom. I brought you one." She handed him a small potted fungus that emitted a soft humming sound when touched. "Grandmama will love studying this," Harry said, carefully stowing the pot in his bag. "Thank you." The journey was mostly uneventful until Malfoy and his cronies made their customary appearance. This year, however, Draco seemed different, more restrained, almost calculating. "Heard your godfather's a wanted fugitive, Addams," he drawled from the doorway. "Birds of a feather, I suppose." "Sirius was framed, as you well know," Harry replied calmly. "But thank you for your concern about my family connections." Malfoy's eyes narrowed at Harry's lack of reaction. "You should choose your allies more carefully." When the Dark Lord what, Malfoy?" Harry interrupted, his voice suddenly sharp. "Comes for me again. Been there, done that. It didn't end well for him last time, did it?" For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered across Malfoy's face. Then his familiar sneer returned. "We'll see who's laughing when this is all over, Addams." After he'd gone, Neville turned to Harry with wide eyes. "You really aren't afraid of you-know-who, are you?" Harry considered the question. "It's not that I'm not afraid," he explained. "It's that I've been taught that fear is something to embrace rather than avoid. The Addams family believes that what most people run from, death, darkness, the unknown, are actually the most interesting aspects of existence." "That's actually rather profound," Hermione said, looking surprised. "Don't tell my parents," Harry grinned. "They'd be horrified to learn they've been philosophical all this time." The welcome feast brought unwelcome news in the form of Dolores Umbridge, a ministry official appointed as the new defense against the dark arts teacher. Her simpering voice and pink cardigan concealed a cold, calculating personality that Harry immediately recognized as dangerous. The ministry's interfering at Hogwarts, he whispered to his friends as Umbridge delivered her speech about progress for progress's sake must be discouraged, and pruning practices that ought to be prohibited. She's going to be trouble, Hermione agreed grimly. How right they were. Umbridge's classes proved to be nothing but reading from a basic textbook with no practical spell work permitted. When Harry questioned this approach, suggesting that they needed to practice defensive magic with Voldemort's return, Umbridge gave him detention and publicly denied the Dark Lord's resurrection. She's worse than useless, Harry complained to his friends after a particularly frustrating lesson. We're learning nothing about defending ourselves. Then teach us yourself, Hermione suggested suddenly. You've faced Voldemort multiple times and survived. You know more about practical defense than anyone. The idea took root, eventually becoming Dumbledore's Army, a secret defense group taught by Harry in the Room of Requirement. Students from Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, and Hufflepuff joined, eager to learn real defensive magic. Harry proved to be a natural teacher, combining conventional defensive spells with some of the more unusual techniques he'd learned from the Addams family. The key to a good shield charm isn't just the incantation, he explained during one session. It's the visualization. Imagine the shield as something personal to you, something you associate with absolute protection. What do you visualize? Dennis Creevey asked curiously. Harry smiled. The front gates of the Addams mansion. They've kept unwanted visitors out for generations. As the DA progressed, Harry received regular letters from home. Pugsley's increasingly detailed descriptions of experiments with Uncle Fester were concerning enough that Harry decided not to share them with Hermione, who would undoubtedly worry about the legality, and safety, of creating miniature lightning storms in portable containers. More worrying were the dreams that plagued Harry's sleep, visions of a long corridor ending in a locked door. Despite practicing the mental exercises Grandmama had taught him, the dreams persisted, growing more intense as the year progressed. When Mr. Weasley was attacked by Nagini while guarding the Department of Mysteries, Harry's vision saved his life, but also confirmed Dumbledore's fears that a connection existed between Harry's mind and Voldemort's. Christmas at Grimmauld Place was a curious blend of order business, Weasley family warmth, and Addams family eccentricity. Sirius, despite initial reservations, embraced the chaos, particularly enjoying Uncle Fester's festive traditions involving electrical experiments with the Christmas tree. Your family is completely mad, he told Harry approvingly. I can see why you fit right in. High praise coming from a man who spent 12 years in Azkaban and still maintained his sense of humor, Harry replied with a grin. As they decorated the ancient house with an unusual combination of traditional Christmas ornaments and Addams family heirlooms, including what appeared to be actual shrunken heads wearing Santa hats, Harry felt a rare sense of completeness. His birth parents' best friend and his adoptive family, together under one roof, it was almost perfect. The moment was interrupted when Snape arrived, announcing that Dumbledore wanted Harry to begin occlumency lessons immediately. The prospect of Snape rummaging through his mind was deeply unappealing, but Harry understood the necessity. Their first session went about as well as expected, which is to say, terribly. Snape's teaching method consisted primarily of brutal mental attacks followed by criticism when Harry failed to repel them. Your mind is an open book, Addams, Snape sneered after Harry collapsed for the third time, memories of his childhood at the Addams mansion still swirling around them. The Dark Lord would find it child's play to manipulate you. With respect, Professor, Harry said, picking himself up, your approach isn't working. Grandmama taught me a different method involving visualization and misdirection rather than simply trying to empty my mind. Your grandmother's eccentric techniques are hardly standard occlumency, Snape dismissed. Perhaps, Harry acknowledged, but they might work better for me than the conventional approach. She suggested creating a mental landscape filled with traps and false paths, like our family graveyard. Something flickered in Snape's eyes, reluctant interest, perhaps. Show me. Harry closed his eyes, concentrating on the sprawling Addams family cemetery, with its centuries of accumulated tombs, mausoleums, and unmarked graves. He populated it with the family's various defensive measures, quicksand disguised as solid ground, statues that reached out to grab intruders, ghostly apparitions that led visitors in endless circles. When Snape entered his mind again, Harry guided him into this mental construct. The result wasn't perfect, but it was significantly better than previous attempts. Snape withdrew, looking somewhat impressed despite himself. Unorthodox, he admitted grudgingly, but not without merit. Continue developing this graveyard of yours. Make it more detailed. Add elements that would specifically confuse or repel the Dark Lord. Their sessions improved gradually, though never becoming pleasant. By focusing on his family's techniques, Harry made progress in protecting his most important memories, though the corridor dreams continued. Meanwhile, Umbridge's reign at Hogwarts grew increasingly oppressive. Educational decrees restricted everything from student gatherings to teacher conversations. When she formed the Inquisitorial Squad, led by Malfoy to enforce her rules, tensions escalated further. The final straw came when Umbridge caught the DA during a practice session. A student named Marietta Edgecombe had betrayed them, triggering Hermione's ingenious jinx that spelled "sneak" across her face in boils. Impressive spellwork, Harry complimented Hermione as they were marched to Dumbledore's office. Very Addams-esque in its poetic justice. "I'll take that as a compliment," Hermione whispered back, looking both worried and pleased. In Dumbledore's office, they found not only Umbridge but also the Minister of Magic and two Aurors. When Umbridge presented the list of Dumbledore's army members as evidence of insurrection, Dumbledore calmly took responsibility for the group, claiming he had been building an army to overthrow the Ministry. Before anyone could arrest him, Dumbledore disappeared in a flash of phoenix fire, leaving Umbridge to be appointed headmistress in his place. The school descended into near anarchy. Fred and George Weasley led the resistance with spectacular magical pranks before making a legendary escape on their broomsticks. Inspired by their example, other students began subtle acts of rebellion, many using items Harry had requested from the Addams family arsenal. Peeves the Poltergeist, armed with a collection of Wednesday's special, surprise packages, became Umbridge's worst nightmare. Harry never asked exactly what was in those packages, but the results spoke for themselves: corridors that randomly rearranged their gravity, suits of armor that followed Umbridge everywhere humming funeral dirges, and her office door that would only open if addressed in rhyming couplets. "Your sister is an evil genius," Ron declared admiringly after Umbridge spent 15 minutes trying to compose a suitable rhyme to enter her own office. "She'll be so pleased you noticed," Harry replied sincerely. The OWL exams approached, bringing additional stress to the fifth years. Harry found himself surprisingly well prepared, thanks to years of Grandmama's unconventional tutoring. The practical portions were particularly successful. His charms examiner was delighted by his perfect levitation charm, though slightly concerned when Harry demonstrated additional mastery by making the egg dance a perfect tango in midair. During his astronomy exam, Harry witnessed Umbridge and several Aurors attempting to arrest Hagrid. The confrontation turned violent when McGonagall intervened, resulting in stunning spells being fired at the deputy headmistress. They wouldn't dare attack McGonagall. Hermione gasped as they watched from the astronomy tower. But they had, and the sight of his head of house being struck down triggered something in Harry. The corridor dreams intensified that night, culminating in a vision of Sirius being tortured by Voldemort in the Department of Mysteries. Desperate to confirm whether the vision was real, Harry broke into Umbridge's office to use her fire for flow communication. The plan failed spectacularly when Umbridge caught him, along with Hermione, Ron, Ginny, Luna, and Neville, who had been standing guard. What followed was one of the darkest moments of Harry's Hogwarts career. Umbridge, desperate for information about Dumbledore's whereabouts, threatened to use the Cruciatus curse on Harry. "You forced me to this, Addams," she said with a simpering smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I gave you chances to cooperate." As she raised her wand, Harry felt a strange calm descend over him, the calm that came from years of Uncle Fester's endurance training, involving mild electrical shocks. "You should know," he said conversationally, "that pain tolerance runs in my family. My sister and I used to play a game called, How Much Voltage Can You Handle? I usually won." Umbridge's eyes widened slightly, her wand hand wavering. "He's right," Hermione interjected suddenly. "It won't work, Professor. But, there might be another way." She fabricated a story about a secret weapon Dumbledore had hidden in the Forbidden Forest, offering to show Umbridge its location. The ploy worked. Umbridge forced Harry and Hermione to lead her into the forest, where they encountered a herd of centaurs. Umbridge's prejudicial insults enraged the proud creatures, who carried her off into the depths of the forest. "That was brilliant, Hermione," Harry said as they escaped. "Though I'm not sure even Umbridge deserved centaur justice." "She'll survive," Hermione replied grimly. "Unfortunately." Reuniting with the others, Harry faced a difficult decision. He still believed Sirius was in danger at the Department of Mysteries, but had no way to confirm the vision's accuracy. "We have to go," he decided finally. "If there's any chance it's real, we can't risk Sirius's life." "But how will we get to London?" Ron asked. Luna, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "We fly, of course. On Thestrals." The journey to the Ministry on Thestralback was terrifying for most of the group, particularly those who couldn't see what they were riding, but Harry found it exhilarating. The skeletal horses reminded him of the spectral steeds in the Addams family stories, harbingers that traveled between worlds. The Department of Mysteries proved to be a labyrinthine complex of strange rooms, one filled with brains floating in tanks, another containing a mysterious veiled archway, and finally the Hall of Prophecies, rows upon rows of glowing orbs containing recorded prophecies. "This is where I saw Sirius," Harry whispered as they crept down row 97. But Sirius was nowhere to be found. Instead, they discovered a prophecy labeled with Harry's name. Before he could process this, Death Eaters emerged from the shadows, surrounding them. "Well done, Potter," Lucius Malfoy's silky voice came from beneath a silver mask. "Now hand over the prophecy." "It's Addams," Harry corrected automatically. "And I don't think I will, actually." "Why does Voldemort want it so badly?" The confrontation quickly escalated into battle. Harry and his friends fought valiantly, using every spell they'd practiced in the DA along with some of the more unusual techniques Harry had taught them from his Addams education. Luna proved particularly effective, combining conventional shield charms with bizarre movements that seemed to confuse the Death Eater's aim. Neville showed unexpected courage, standing his ground despite a broken nose. Hermione's quick thinking and Ron's strategic mind complemented Ginny's powerful hexes. They were outnumbered and outmatched, but they were not going down easily. As they retreated into the room with the veiled archway, Harry clutched the prophecy orb tightly. Somehow, he knew it contained information vital to understanding his connection to Voldemort. The tide turned when the Order of the Phoenix arrived. Sirius, Remus, Moody, Tonks, and Kingsley burst into the room, dueling the Death Eaters with impressive skill. For a moment, victory seemed possible. Then Bellatrix Lestrange entered the fray. Her insane laughter echoed through the chamber as she fired curse after curse with deadly accuracy. When she targeted Harry, Sirius intercepted, engaging his cousin in a vicious duel. "You can do better than that," Sirius taunted as he dodged a red jet of light. The next spell hit him squarely in the chest. Harry watched in horror as his godfather's body arched gracefully backward, falling through the veiled archway behind him. Sirius's expression registered shock, then confusion, before he disappeared behind the veil. "Sirius!" Harry screamed, running toward the archway. Remus caught him, holding him back with surprising strength. "He's gone, Harry," Remus said, his voice breaking. "He's gone." Rage unlike anything Harry had ever known surged through him. Bellatrix was already fleeing, her mocking laughter trailing behind her. Breaking free from Remus, Harry pursued her into the Ministry atrium. Come back and fight. He shouted, firing stunning spells that she deflected easily. Ah, does little baby Potter miss his godfather? Bellatrix taunted. Did you love him, baby Potter? It's Addams. Harry roared, his fury manifesting in a powerful Cruciatus curse that struck Bellatrix, briefly bringing her to her knees. She looked up at him, surprised and slightly impressed. You have to mean it, boy, she panted. Righteous anger won't sustain an unforgivable. You need to really want to cause pain. Before Harry could respond, a cold voice echoed through the atrium, indeed, Bella is right. Voldemort had arrived, his snake-like features twisted in a cruel smile. So much for your godfather, Harry Potter. Another loss in your pitiable collection. It's Addams, Harry corrected automatically, his grief temporarily overshadowed by the immediate danger. Harry Addams. And at least Sirius died fighting, not hiding behind his followers like some people. Voldemort's red eyes narrowed dangerously. You continue to speak to me with disrespect. Perhaps you need another lesson in fear. Fear? Harry laughed, a genuine Addams laugh that echoed eerily through the atrium. You still don't understand, do you? I was raised by people who embrace what most fear. Death, darkness, pain, these are old friends to the Addams family. For a moment, confusion flickered across Voldemort's inhuman features. Then his lipless mouth curved into a cruel smile. Let's test that theory, shall we? Crucio. The pain was excruciating, far beyond Uncle Fester's electrical experiments or Wednesday's accidental poisonings. Every nerve ending in Harry's body screamed in agony. But even as he fell to his knees, Harry found himself thinking of Wednesday's advice during their childhood endurance games: pain is just information. Acknowledge it, then set it aside. With tremendous effort, Harry looked up at Voldemort and smiled through the pain. Is that the best you can do? Voldemort's eyes widened in shock, the curse faltering momentarily. In that instant, the fireplaces around the atrium flared green, and wizards began appearing, ministry workers arriving for the day, followed by Dumbledore himself. It was foolish of you to come here tonight, Tom, Dumbledore said calmly, his wand already moving in complex patterns. The duel that followed was beyond anything Harry had witnessed, two master wizards at the height of their power, exchanging spells so quickly they were barely visible. The very elements responded to their magic, water, fire, glass, and stone becoming weapons and shields in their hands. When Voldemort realized he could not defeat Dumbledore, he attempted a final desperate tactic: possession. Harry felt the Dark Lord invade his mind, a sensation far worse than Snape's legilimency attacks. Kill me now, Dumbledore, Voldemort spoke through Harry's mouth, using his voice. If death is nothing, as you claim, kill the boy. But Voldemort had made a critical error. Invading Harry's mind meant entering the mental landscape Harry had carefully constructed during his occlumency training, the Addams family graveyard, filled with centuries of accumulated darkness and macabre energy. Using every ounce of mental strength, Harry welcomed Voldemort deeper into this construct, leading him toward the center where the oldest Addams tombs lay. There, in a space that existed only in Harry's mind, the spirits of generations of Addamses waited, not real ghosts, but mental constructs given form by Harry's belief in his family. You fear death, Harry told Voldemort within this mental space. We embrace it. That's why you'll never understand me, and why you'll never truly defeat me. Voldemort recoiled from these manifestations of Harry's family legacy, from the comfortable relationship with death and darkness that was antithetical to everything the Dark Lord stood for. With a scream of rage and confusion, he withdrew from Harry's mind. When Harry regained awareness of his physical surroundings, he found himself lying on the atrium floor with Dumbledore kneeling beside him. Fudge and other ministry officials stood nearby, staring in shock at the spot where Voldemort had disappeared. He was here, Fudge mumbled in disbelief. He who must not be named, here, in the ministry. If you proceed to the Department of Mysteries, Dumbledore informed him calmly, you will find several escaped Death Eaters contained in the Death Chamber, bound by an anti-disapparation jinx and awaiting your decision about what to do with them. The following days passed in a blur of grief and vindication. The Ministry finally acknowledged Voldemort's return, Umbridge was removed from Hogwarts, and Dumbledore was reinstated as headmaster. But none of it eased the pain of Sirius's loss. Back at Hogwarts, Harry spent hours by the lake, processing his grief in the Addams way, by accepting it fully rather than fighting against it. Luna found him there one evening, sitting beside him in comfortable silence before speaking. "My mother died when I was 9, she said softly. It hurt for a long time. Does it still hurt?" Harry asked. "Yes," she answered simply. "But differently now. Like a friendship with the pain rather than a battle against it." Harry nodded, understanding completely. "That sounds very Addams of you." "I'll take that as a compliment," Luna smiled. "The veil where Sirius fell, I could hear whispers coming from it. I think it's a gateway between worlds, not an ending." "That's what Wednesday would say," Harry agreed. "In our family, death isn't seen as a final goodbye, more like someone moving to a different room in the same house." Luna took his hand, a rare gesture for her. "Then Sirius has just changed rooms. And someday, when it's time, you'll visit him there." The idea brought Harry unexpected comfort. When Dumbledore finally revealed the prophecy's contents, that neither Harry nor Voldemort could live while the other survived, Harry accepted this knowledge with the same philosophical approach. "So it's been leading to this all along," he said calmly, sitting in Dumbledore's office. "Ever since he marked me as an infant." "You take this news with remarkable equanimity," Dumbledore observed, studying Harry over his half-moon spectacles. Harry shrugged. "The Addams family has a saying, death smiles at us all. All we can do is smile back." "A profound sentiment," Dumbledore nodded. "Though I suspect your adoptive family would add something about embracing death with open arms rather than merely smiling at it. Probably with an elaborate dance and ceremonial daggers," Harry admitted with a small smile. As the term ended and students prepared to return home, Harry found himself standing with Ron, Hermione, and Luna on the Hogwarts Express, contemplating the war that now lay openly before them. "Things will be different now," Hermione said quietly. "With the Ministry acknowledging Voldemort's return." "The fight's just beginning," Ron agreed grimly. "Then we'd better be ready," Harry said, his green eyes reflecting a determination that went beyond his years. "Voldemort thinks he understands fear and death better than anyone. He's about to learn how wrong he is." Luna looked up from her upside-down quibbler. "The Addams are going to war," she stated simply. And somehow, in those 5 words, she captured exactly what made Harry different from other wizards, what gave him strength that Voldemort couldn't comprehend. He wasn't just Harry Potter, the boy who lived. He was Harry Addams, raised to find strength in darkness and to laugh in the face of death. The coming battle would be fought not just with wands and spells, but with 2 fundamentally opposed philosophies, Voldemort's desperate fear of mortality versus the Addams family's embrace of it. And as the train carried them toward an uncertain future, Harry felt strangely calm. The path ahead was dangerous, possibly fatal, and yet, as Gomez would say, that only made it more interesting. Chapter 3, The Ultimate Punchline. The summer before Harry's 6th year brought war to the wizarding world's doorstep. Bridges collapsed. People disappeared. Strange mists rolled across the countryside, bringing despair in their wake. The Daily Prophet reported new tragedies daily, each headline more grim than the last. Harry absorbed these developments from the relative safety of the Addams family mansion, which had been fortified with additional protective enchantments by the Order of the Phoenix. Not that the Addamses felt such measures were necessary. "I don't see why everyone's so concerned," Gomez remarked at breakfast, casually juggling live grenades while reading the newspaper. "A little chaos is good for the soul." "The Dementors are breeding," Harry pointed out, snatching one of the grenades mid-air and defusing it out of habit. "That's why there's all this unusual fog and cold weather. Marvelous creatures," Morticia sighed wistfully, arranging black roses in a skull-shaped vase. So misunderstood. I tried to convince Dumbledore to let us adopt one as a pet, but he was surprisingly firm in his refusal. How disappointing, Wednesday commented flatly, feeding her pet spider a live cricket. Their feeding process would have been fascinating to observe up close. A screech announced the arrival of an owl bearing Harry's Hogwarts letter. Along with the usual book list came a surprise, a shiny badge with a large C emblazoned on it. Quidditch Captain. Gomez exclaimed, clapping Harry on the shoulder hard enough to make his teeth rattle. Splendid. Leading others into battle and potential injury. Your father would be so proud. Which father? Pugsley asked through a mouthful of something that smoked suspiciously. Both of them, I'd imagine, Harry grinned, pocketing the badge. Later that day, a more unusual delivery arrived, a package containing a heavily damaged book titled Secrets of the Darkest Art, accompanied by a note in Dumbledore's elegant handwriting, "For your eyes only. Destroy after reading." Harry sequestered himself in the family library, surrounded by generations of Addams family grimoires and cursed texts, to examine Dumbledore's mysterious gift. The book contained detailed information on Horcruxes, objects in which a dark wizard could conceal fragments of their soul, ensuring a form of immortality. Split the soul through murder, Harry murmured, tracing the gruesome illustrations with his finger. Hide the fragments in objects of significance. As long as the Horcruxes exist, the creator cannot truly die. The theory clicked into place like the final tumbler in one of the family's many deadly puzzle boxes. That's how he survived when the killing curse rebounded, Harry whispered to himself. Voldemort made Horcruxes. He brought his discovery to Grandmama, whose extensive knowledge of dark magic often surpassed what was taught in any wizarding school. Horcruxes, she cackled, her ancient eyes lighting up with academic interest. Haven't heard that term in decades. Great-uncle Pericles tried making one back in 1738. Unfortunately, he chose a timepiece as his vessel. The family grandfather clock ate him the following Tuesday. This is how Voldemort survived, Harry explained, showing her the book. Grandmama adjusted her spectacles, examining the text with professional interest. Crude work, she sniffed dismissively. Soul magic requires finesse, not butchery. Splitting the soul doesn't cheat death, it merely prolongs the inevitable while diminishing oneself. No self-respecting Addams would attempt it. How would you destroy one? Harry asked. Few substances are powerful enough, she replied, rifling through her extensive collection of potions ingredients. Basilisk venom would do it, highly corrosive to magical containers. Fiend fire as well, though that's notoriously difficult to control. And, of course, sacrificial magic of sufficient power. Harry considered this information carefully. I think I need to speak with Dumbledore. Before returning to Hogwarts, Harry received a visit from the headmaster himself, who arrived one evening to discuss private lessons for the coming year. Lurch showed Dumbledore to the conservatory, where the headmaster admired Morticia's collection of carnivorous plants with genuine appreciation. Your pitcher plants are particularly vigorous, Mrs. Addams, he commented, expertly avoiding a vine that seemed intent on measuring his neck size. Thank you, headmaster, Morticia beamed. The secret is in the fertilizer. Would you care for some hemlock tea? While Morticia prepared refreshments, Dumbledore turned to Harry. I see you received my package. Yes, sir. I've been researching with my grandmother. She's quite knowledgeable about such things. I suspected she might be, Dumbledore nodded. The Addams family has ancient connections to magical practices that modern wizardry has largely forgotten, or deliberately abandoned. We're collectors, Harry explained with a shrug. Knowledge, artifacts, potentially world-ending curses, we preserve them all. It's precisely this unique perspective that may prove invaluable in the coming conflict, Dumbledore said, accepting a cup of suspicious-looking tea from Morticia with a polite nod. Tom Riddle fears death above all else. You, Harry, have been raised to view it quite differently. It's just another state of being, Harry agreed. Grandmama says the boundary between life and death is more like a screen door than a solid wall, easy to pass through if you know how to unlatch it. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. An apt metaphor. It's this fundamental philosophical difference that Tom cannot comprehend, and it may ultimately be his undoing. They discussed Dumbledore's plan for the coming year, private lessons exploring Voldemort's past through collected memories, searching for clues about how many Horcruxes he might have created and what objects he might have chosen. "I believe I've already located and destroyed one," Dumbledore revealed, showing Harry his blackened, withered right hand. A ring that once belonged to Tom's grandfather. "The curse nearly killed me, would have, if not for Professor Snape's intervention." "The diary I destroyed in the Chamber of Secrets," Harry realized suddenly. "That was another, wasn't it?" "Indeed," Dumbledore confirmed. "2 down, but I suspect several more remain." As Dumbledore prepared to leave, he paused to admire a particularly grotesque stuffed vulture in the hallway. "Remarkable taxidermy," he commented. "Oh, he's not stuffed," Gomez corrected cheerfully. "That's Cousin Corvus. Unfortunate transfiguration accident in 1962. He seems quite content, though." As if on cue, the vulture blinked. The trip to Hogwarts proved eventful when Harry decided to follow Draco Malfoy, whose suspicious behavior in Borgin and Burke's had caught Harry's attention. Hidden under his invisibility cloak, Harry slipped into the Slytherin compartment, only to be caught and petrified by Malfoy after the other students had left. "Enjoy the ride back to London, Addams," Malfoy sneered, throwing a blanket over Harry's immobilized form. Fortunately, Tonks found him before the train departed. As she removed the bodybind curse, Harry noticed changes in her appearance. Her usually vibrant hair was mousy brown, her face drawn and sad. "Tonks, are you all right?" Harry asked, concerned. "Just tired," she replied unconvincingly. "Come on, we need to get you to the castle." At the entrance gates, Snape greeted them with his usual warmth. "Decided to arrive fashionably late, Addams? Perhaps you thought an ordinary carriage wasn't grand enough for the chosen one?" "Actually, Professor, I was thinking of arriving by lightning strike," Harry replied seriously. "Uncle Fester says it's invigorating, but I couldn't quite master the technique." Snape's expression flickered between irritation and, just possibly, the ghost of amusement. 50 points from Ravenclaw for your cheek, Addams. Now get inside before I make it 100. The term began with surprises. Snape had finally secured the defense against the dark arts position, while potions would now be taught by Horace Slughorn, a jovial, corpulent wizard who immediately took an interest in Harry's fame, though not necessarily for the reasons Harry expected. "Your family!" Slughorn exclaimed during their first potions class. "The Addamses. I once attended a dinner party at your great-grandfather's estate in the Carpathian Mountains. Most unusual culinary experience of my life. I couldn't taste anything for a week afterward. Grandmama's special numbing sauce," Harry nodded knowingly. "She uses it for guests who might otherwise object to some of the more exotic ingredients." Thanks to the unexpected loan of an old textbook belonging to the half-blood prince, whom Harry eventually deduced was Snape himself, Harry excelled in potions like never before. The book contained ingenious modifications to standard potion recipes, many of which aligned with techniques Grandmama had taught him years ago. "Crush the saprophyros bean instead of cutting it," Harry read in the margin of the draft of Living Death instructions. "Just like Grandmama always says, intent matters more than precision." Meanwhile, Dumbledore's private lessons provided crucial insights into Voldemort's past. Through the headmaster's collected memories, Harry witnessed Tom Riddle's progression from troubled orphan to brilliant student to emerging Dark Lord. Most importantly, he learned that Riddle had been obsessed with collecting trophies, items of significance that might well have become Horcruxes. The diary, the ring, and likely Hufflepuff's cup and Slytherin's locket, Dumbledore theorized during one session. Tom always coveted connections to Hogwarts founders. Plus something of Ravenclaws and Gryffindors to complete the set. Harry suggested. Possibly, though the only known Gryffindor relic is the sword, which has remained secure. As for Ravenclaw, perhaps her lost diadem, though it hasn't been seen in centuries. Harry shared these discoveries with Ron and Hermione, who had become his research partners in the hunt for Horcruxes. Hermione approached the problem academically, compiling lists of possible hiding places based on locations significant to Riddle's life. Ron contributed strategic thinking, plotting how they might reach these locations undetected. Luna occasionally joined their discussions, offering perspective that bordered on the supernatural. Objects that contained soul fragments would attract Raxperts, she explained dreamily. They're drawn to fractured spirits. That's actually helpful, Hermione admitted, adding this information to her notes. We could potentially detect Horcruxes by monitoring unusual creature activity. While researching Horcruxes occupied much of Harry's time, he didn't neglect his responsibilities as Ravenclaw Quidditch captain. Under his leadership, the team developed unorthodox strategies that left opponents disoriented. The Addams feint, Terry Boot dubbed Harry's signature move, which involved diving straight toward the ground at breakneck speed, then pulling up at the last possible second, often while hanging upside down from the broom. Flying is just falling with style, Harry explained during practice, quoting Uncle Fester's dubious wisdom. Between Quidditch, research, and Dumbledore's lessons, Harry still found time to monitor Malfoy's suspicious activities via the Marauder's map. The Slytherin prefect frequently disappeared into the room of requirement for hours at a time. He's planning something, Harry insisted to Ron and Hermione. Something connected to Voldemort. Maybe, Hermione acknowledged. But finding Horcruxes has to take priority over whatever Malfoy's doing. Harry grudgingly agreed, especially after Dumbledore promised to take him along on a mission to retrieve what the headmaster believed was another Horcrux, Slytherin's locket, hidden in a seaside cave. The night of their expedition arrived with a sense of foreboding. Before leaving with Dumbledore, Harry shared the contents of the Felix Felicis potion he'd won in Slughorn's class with Ron, Hermione, and Ginny, instructing them to watch over the school in case Malfoy made his move while the headmaster was absent. The cave proved to be one of the most sinister places Harry had ever visited, which, given his upbringing, was saying something. A boat ride across an underground lake filled with inferi led to an island with a basin of glowing green potion. Inside the basin lay a locket, unreachable except by drinking the potion. I must drink it, Dumbledore decided. You must ensure I consume it all, Harry, no matter what happens, no matter what I say. What followed was horrific. The potion caused Dumbledore extreme suffering, hallucinations, terrible thirst, pleas for death. Harry forced himself to continue, remembering Grandmama's lessons about necessary cruelty. Sometimes, the kindest path is the most painful one. Finally, the basin was empty. Harry retrieved the locket while giving Dumbledore water from the lake, which unfortunately awakened the inferi. Surrounded by reanimated corpses, Harry remembered Wednesday's lecture on dealing with the undead. Fire, he muttered, summoning a ring of flames around the island with a powerful incendio charm. The inferi retreated, allowing Harry to help Dumbledore back to the boat. They returned to Hogsmeade to find the dark mark hovering over Hogwarts. Weak as he was, Dumbledore insisted on flying directly to the astronomy tower. There they discovered Malfoy waiting, wand drawn, tasked by Voldemort with killing the headmaster. Hidden under his invisibility cloak and frozen in place by Dumbledore's silent spell, Harry could only watch as Draco disarmed the headmaster, then hesitated, unable to cast the killing curse. Death Eaters arrived, urging Draco to finish the job. When he couldn't, Snape stepped forward. Severus, please, Dumbledore said softly. Avada Kedavra. Snape cast the killing curse, sending Dumbledore's body plummeting from the tower. The moment Dumbledore died, Harry was released from the binding spell. Rage propelling him forward, he chased after Snape and the retreating Death Eaters. Spells flew in all directions as Order members battled Death Eaters throughout the castle. Harry pursued Snape across the grounds, firing hexes that the former potions master deflected with insulting ease. Fight back, you coward. Harry shouted, attempting a Cruciatus curse that barely affected Snape. "You dare use my own spells against me, Addams?" Snape snarled. "Yes, I am the Half-Blood Prince. And you lack the conviction for unforgivables. Your Addams upbringing has taught you that death is not to be feared, so how can you truly mean to cause pain?" With a final dismissive flick of his wand, Snape disappeared beyond the gates with Malfoy in tow, leaving Harry standing alone in the darkness. The aftermath was grim. Bill Weasley had been savaged by Fenrir Greyback. Several students were injured. And Dumbledore was dead, killed by the man he had trusted most. At the funeral, Harry sat with the Addams family, who had arrived dressed in their finest mourning clothes, which, for the Addamses, meant elaborate Victorian-style attire complete with veils, top hats, and ceremonial daggers. A magnificent send-off, Gomez whispered approvingly as white flames engulfed Dumbledore's body, transforming it into a marble tomb. Though it could have used more wailing and perhaps a traditional blood oath or two. Different cultures, different practices, Morticia reminded him gently. The restraint has its own dignity. After the ceremony, Harry pulled Ron and Hermione aside, along with Wednesday who had insisted on being included. "I'm not coming back next year," he told them. "Dumbledore left me a mission, finding and destroying the remaining Horcruxes. That's the only way to defeat Voldemort." "We're coming with you," Hermione said immediately, Ron nodding beside her. "I expected nothing less," Harry smiled. "But it'll be dangerous." "Excellent," Wednesday commented, her dark eyes gleaming. "I'll prepare the travel guillotine." Harry turned to his adopted sister. "Wednesday, I need you to do something different. Hogwarts will be under Voldemort's control soon. The students will need protection from within." Wednesday considered this, then nodded. "Psychological warfare from inside enemy territory. Strategic. I approve. Just try not to actually kill anyone," Hermione added quickly. "I make no promises," Wednesday replied flatly. As the crowd dispersed, Harry noticed the Minister of Magic heading his way, undoubtedly seeking a private word about Dumbledore's final mission. With a practiced Addams move, Harry seamlessly vanished into the crowd, disappearing as if he'd never been there at all. The time for talking was over. The hunt would begin soon. Summer at the Addams mansion became a war council. The dining room table disappeared beneath maps, books, and magical artifacts as Harry, Ron, Hermione, and various Addams family members planned their Horcrux hunt. "The locket we retrieved from the cave was a fake," Harry explained, showing everyone the note signed R.A.B. that had been inside. "Someone got there before us and took the real Horcrux." Regulus Arcturus Black, Sirius's younger brother, Grandmama identified immediately. Always was a clever boy, if a bit melodramatic. Family trait. This revelation led them to Grimmauld Place, where they discovered that Mundungus Fletcher had stolen the real locket during his looting of the Black family home. After tracking down Fletcher through various shady contacts of Uncle Fester's, they learned he had been forced to give the locket to Dolores Umbridge. "The Ministry of Magic," Ron groaned. "Might as well try breaking into Gringotts." "Actually," Gomez brightened, "I've always wanted to try that. I have schematics from the 1867 Goblin Rebellion that show a promising weakness in the—" "Let's save that for Plan B, Father," Harry interrupted. "For now, we need to infiltrate the Ministry." The preparation was meticulous. Using Polyjuice Potion, they would assume the identities of 3 Ministry employees. Uncle Fester provided untraceable wands, Grandmama brewed specialized potions for emergency escapes, and Wednesday designed several contingency packages that she refused to explain in detail. "Just pull the red string in case of extreme danger," she instructed, handing Harry a small black box. "And stand at least 10 feet away when you do." "What does it do?" Hermione asked nervously. "Better not to know," Wednesday replied. Plausible deniability. The Ministry infiltration was chaotic but successful. They located Umbridge in a courtroom, presiding over trials of Muggleborns while wearing Slytherin's locket around her neck. After stunning Umbridge and taking the locket, they barely escaped a swarm of Dementors, inadvertently freeing several Muggleborns in the process. That was too close, Hermione gasped once they had apparat to safety in a remote forest. They'll be looking for us everywhere now. But we have the locket, Harry reminded her, holding up the heavy gold necklace. One step closer. Destroying the Horcrux proved more challenging than obtaining it. They took turns wearing it while researching destruction methods, but the locket's dark influence affected their mood and thoughts. Ron suffered most, growing irritable and paranoid until he finally abandoned them after a heated argument. Let him go, Harry told a distraught Hermione. The locket was amplifying his fears. He'll come back when he's thinking clearly again. They continued moving from campsite to campsite, always one step ahead of Snatchers and Death Eaters. Christmas brought a dangerous visit to Godric's Hollow, where they barely escaped an ambush by Nagini, Voldemort's snake, which Harry now suspected was another Horcrux. The real breakthrough came when Ron returned, saving Harry from drowning in an icy pond where he'd discovered the Sword of Gryffindor. The sword, impregnated with basilisk venom from Harry's second-year encounter, was capable of destroying Horcruxes. You do it, Harry told Ron, placing the locket on a flat rock. It affected you worst, you should be the one to end it. When Harry opened the locket using Parseltongue, a spectral form of Voldemort emerged, tormenting Ron with visions of his deepest fears and insecurities. With a roar of defiance, Ron brought the sword down, cleaving the locket in two and destroying the Horcrux within. 3 down, Harry counted. The diary, the ring, and now the locket. Their next lead came unexpectedly when they were captured by Snatchers and taken to Malfoy Manor. There, despite Bellatrix Lestrange's torture of Hermione, they managed to escape with the help of Dobby the house elf. The loyal creature sacrificed himself in the process, taking a knife thrown by Bellatrix. Harry buried Dobby by hand, without magic, at Shell Cottage where Bill and Fleur offered them sanctuary. During their captivity, Harry had learned 2 crucial pieces of information: Voldemort was seeking the Elder Wand, and another Horcrux was hidden in the Lestrange vault at Gringotts. Looks like we're going with Plan B after all, Harry told Ron and Hermione grimly. We need to break into Gringotts. Using Griphook the Goblin's inside knowledge and Hermione disguised as Bellatrix, they executed a daring heist of the Lestrange vault. Despite betrayal by Griphook and the release of a guardian dragon, they escaped with Hufflepuff's cup, another Horcrux. For down, Harry updated his count after they destroyed the cup using a basilisk fang retrieved from the Chamber of Secrets during a secret return to Hogwarts. But we still need to find something of Ravenclaw's and kill the snake. Their search led them back to Hogwarts for the final confrontation. The castle had changed under the Carrow's brutal regime, but resistance flourished underground, led by Neville Longbottom and, to Harry's pride, Wednesday Addams, whose psychological warfare had reduced the Carrow siblings to nervous wrecks. They check under their beds for boggarts every night, Wednesday reported with the faintest hint of a smile. Pathetic. I haven't even released the real ones yet. The Room of Requirement became headquarters for Dumbledore's army and the newly arrived Order of the Phoenix members. Luna helped Harry identify Ravenclaw's lost diadem as the likely 5th Horcrux, eventually locating it in the Room of Hidden Things. Meanwhile, Voldemort had realized his Horcruxes were being destroyed. He and his forces surrounded Hogwarts, demanding Harry's surrender. You have until midnight to deliver Harry Potter, his magically amplified voice announced. Restrict your losses, you have 1 hour. In the Great Hall, Gomez Addams climbed atop the Ravenclaw table, drawing everyone's attention with a sharp whistle. The entire Addams clan had arrived for the battle, each member armed with their preferred weapons, conventional and otherwise. Ladies and gentlemen, witches and wizards. Gomez announced dramatically, his mustache quivering with excitement. Tonight we face the so-called Dark Lord and his followers. They threaten us with death. He paused, looking genuinely confused. Is that supposed to be frightening? How disappointing, Morticia sighed. Such a limited imagination. Exactly. Gomez jumped down, drawing twin rapiers. The Addams family has danced with death for generations. We've invited him to dinner. Played charades with his cousins. This Voldemort fellow simply doesn't understand who he's dealing with. His unexpected pep talk lifted spirits throughout the hall. Students and order members alike found themselves smiling despite the dire circumstances. Uncle Fester demonstrated his unique defensive techniques, charging himself with electricity until his bald head glowed bright enough to illuminate the entire hall. "First Death Eater who touches me gets 10,000 volts, he cackled. Grandmama distributed vials of her special potions to strategic fighters, while Lurch silently took up position by the main doors, looking like a particularly forbidding sentinel. Pugsley eagerly shared his collection of modified dumb bombs with the Weasley twins, who looked upon the young Addams with newfound respect. While the defenders prepared, Harry pursued the remaining Horcruxes. The diadem was destroyed in fiend fire conjured accidentally by Crabbe in the Room of Requirement. 5 down, with only Nagini and potentially one more remaining. Then came the moment Harry had both dreaded and anticipated. Through his connection with Voldemort, he witnessed Snape's murder in the Shrieking Shack, killed by Nagini on Voldemort's orders, not out of anger but simply because the Dark Lord believed killing Snape would make him the true master of the Elder Wand. As Snape lay dying, he gave Harry his memories, revealing the truth at last. Snape had always been Dumbledore's man, motivated by his lifelong love for Lily Potter. More shocking still, Harry himself was a Horcrux, the one Voldemort never intended to make. A piece of the Dark Lord's soul had attached to Harry the night his parents died. "Neither can live while the other survives," Harry whispered, finally understanding the prophecy's true meaning. "I have to die." The realization brought not fear but a strange peace. Harry had been raised to view death as a natural part of existence, perhaps even an adventure in itself. The Addamses had prepared him for this moment without ever knowing it. He slipped away from the castle under his invisibility cloak, heading toward the Forbidden Forest where Voldemort waited. On the way, he used the Resurrection Stone, hidden inside the snitch Dumbledore had left him, to summon the spirits of his birth parents, Sirius, and Remus, who had fallen earlier in the battle alongside his wife, Tonks. "You've been so brave," Lily told him, her ghostly form shimmering in the darkness. "We're proud of you, son," James added. "Your other family, the Addamses, they've raised you well. Does it hurt?" Harry asked, suddenly feeling very young. "Dying?" Quicker and easier than falling asleep, Sirius assured him with his old roguish smile. "You'll stay with me?" "Until the end," his mother promised. Accompanied by these spectral guardians, Harry entered the forest clearing where Voldemort and his Death Eaters waited. The Dark Lord's red eyes gleamed with triumph when Harry stepped forward, wandless and alone. "Harry Potter," Voldemort said softly. "The boy who lived, come to die." "It's Addams, actually," Harry corrected calmly. "Harry Addams. And yes, I've come to die. But not for the reason you think." Confusion flickered across Voldemort's snake-like features. "Your surrender means nothing. It changes nothing." "That's where you're wrong," Harry smiled, a true Addams smile that unnerved even the Death Eaters. "Death isn't surrender. It's just, the next great adventure." For a moment, Voldemort seemed unsettled by Harry's calm acceptance. Then his lipless mouth twisted into a cruel smile. "We shall see. Avada Kedavra." The green light struck Harry directly in the chest. He felt his body fall, but his consciousness continued, finding itself in a misty, clean version of King's Cross Station. There he met Dumbledore once more and learned the final truth: the fragment of Voldemort's soul within Harry had been destroyed by the killing curse, while Harry himself could choose to return to the living world. "I have to go back, don't I?" Harry asked. "That is up to you," Dumbledore replied. "Voldemort has the Elder Wand, but it's not working properly for him, is it? Because I disarmed Draco, who had disarmed you. You always were perceptive, Harry," Dumbledore smiled. The wand's true allegiance is indeed to you. Harry nodded, his decision made. Time to return and finish this. One last punchline to deliver. He awoke to find Narcissa Malfoy bending over him, checking for signs of life. In a barely audible whisper, she asked, "Is Draco alive? Is he in the castle?" "Yes," Harry breathed. Narcissa straightened. "He is dead," she announced to Voldemort. Hagrid was forced to carry Harry's supposedly lifeless body back to Hogwarts, where Voldemort proclaimed his victory to the defenders gathered outside the castle. The sight of Harry's body broke their resolve, until a curious laugh cut through the silence. It began with Wednesday, a soft, eerie chuckle that grew as the other Addamses joined in. Soon the entire family was laughing as if at some private joke, confusing everyone, including Voldemort himself. "Silence," the Dark Lord commanded. "Your champion is dead. What could possibly amuse you now?" "Oh, Tommy," Grandmama cackled, using the diminutive that Voldemort despised. "You really don't understand the Addams family at all, do you?" "Death is just a state of mind," Morticia added, her red lips curving in a knowing smile. "And minds can be changed," Gomez finished with a wink. In that moment of distraction, several things happened at once. Neville pulled the sword of Gryffindor from the sorting hat and beheaded Nagini. Harry rolled from Hagrid's arms, very much alive. And the Addams family launched into coordinated action that could only be described as gloriously chaotic. Uncle Fester flung charged metal objects that exploded on impact with Death Eater's shields. Wednesday fired a crossbow with unerring accuracy. Pugsley's modified dumb bombs created targeted swamps beneath enemy feet. Lurch simply picked up Death Eaters and threw them bodily across the grounds. The battle resumed with renewed vigor, moving into the Great Hall. Harry and Voldemort circled each other in the center while duels erupted all around them. "You cannot kill me, Potter," Voldemort hissed. "I am immortal." "It's Addams," Harry corrected one final time. "And you're not immortal anymore. Your Horcruxes are gone. All of them." Fear, genuine fear, flashed across Voldemort's face. "Impossible. The diary, destroyed in my second year. The ring, eliminated by Dumbledore. The locket, stabbed by Ron. The cup, destroyed with basilisk venom. The diadem, consumed by fiendfire. Nagini, beheaded moments ago. And the accidental Horcrux, the one in me, that's gone too, thanks to your own killing curse." Voldemort's confidence faltered visibly. "Even so, I wield the Elder Wand." "Do you, though?" Harry asked, deliberately casual. "Because it doesn't seem to be working very well for you. It's almost as if the wand doesn't recognize you as its master." Understanding dawned in Voldemort's red eyes. "Draco disarmed Dumbledore. And I disarmed Draco weeks ago," Harry finished. "The wand's allegiance is to me, not you." Rage contorted Voldemort's features. "It matters not. I'll kill you with or without the wand's full power. Avada Kedavra. Expelliarmus." Harry countered. The spells collided in midair. The Elder Wand flew from Voldemort's hand, and his own killing curse rebounded upon him. Tom Riddle fell backward, arms splayed, finally and irrevocably dead. Silence fell across the great hall, broken only by the sound of slow, deliberate clapping. Wednesday Addams stood alone, applauding the Dark Lord's demise with characteristic understatement. "Excellent form," she commented to Harry. "Clean. Elegant. Ironic. The ultimate punchline," Harry agreed, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of the past year. He died by his own hand, killed by the thing he feared most. Victory celebrations erupted around them, but Harry found himself seeking quiet corners, processing the enormity of what had happened. Luna found him sitting alone beneath the bewitched ceiling of the Great Hall, now showing a peaceful dawn breaking. "You did it," she said simply, sitting beside him. "We did it," Harry corrected. All of us. What will you do now? She asked, her silvery eyes studying him curiously. With no Dark Lord to defeat? Harry considered the question. Live, I suppose. Really live, without prophecies or Horcruxes hanging over me. Maybe travel with the family. Grandmama's been talking about a grand tour of ancient burial sites for years. That sounds lovely, Luna smiled. Will you write? I'd like to hear about the burial customs of different cultures. Daddy's running a series on funeral traditions next month. I'll do better than write, Harry promised. I'll bring you something from each site. Something appropriately weird and wonderful. I'd like that, she said softly. 5 years later, the Addams family magical curiosities shop stood at the intersection of Diagon and Nocturne alleys, a perfect liminal space between light and dark magic. Its windows displayed an eclectic collection of items, spinning silver instruments, preserved magical creatures in ornate jars, and books bound in materials best left unidentified. A bell jangled discordantly as the door opened, admitting a nervous-looking ministry official. Mr. Addams, the wizard called, peering into the dimly lit interior. Department of Magical Artifacts Regulation. We've had reports of, questionable merchandise. Questionable is such a subjective term, came a smooth voice from behind a tall display case. Harry Addams emerged, now 22 and looking more like Gomez with each passing year, though his lightning scar and green eyes remained distinctive. What some find questionable, others find educational. Yes, well, the inspector fumbled with his paperwork. There's specific concern about the, interactive skeleton display, in your front window. Several parents have complained about nightmares. Character building, Harry dismissed with a wave. Uncle Fester always says that a childhood without nightmares is like pudding without arsenic, bland and forgettable. Before the inspector could respond, Wednesday emerged from the back room, her hair still in its characteristic braids despite being in her early 20s. She carried a small cage containing something that emitted an alarming hissing sound. The venomous tentacula cuttings are ready for shipment to Neville, she informed Harry. I've included care instructions that should prevent another greenhouse evacuation. Excellent, Harry nodded. Professor Longbottom will be pleased. The inspector looked increasingly uncomfortable. About the skeleton, Uncle Yorick? Harry interrupted. He's family. Been with us for generations. We could hardly leave him in the mansion when we opened the shop. Family, the inspector spluttered. But it's a skeleton. How rude, Wednesday commented flatly. Uncle Yorick has feelings. Or he would, if he still had nerves. The skeleton in question chose that moment to wave jauntily from the window display. Now see here, the inspector began. The shop door opened again, admitting Luna Lovegood Addams, her long blonde hair now intertwined with black ribbons, a nod to her recent marriage into the Addams family. She carried a stack of the latest edition of the Quibbler. Hello, darling, she greeted Harry dreamily. The Rotfong conspiracy issue is selling wonderfully. Oh, and Hermione Fire called. She's finally persuaded the Wisengamot to review the house elf legislation. About time, Harry grinned. Only took her 5 years of legal battling. The inspector, realizing he was fighting a losing battle, began edging toward the door. Perhaps I could come back another time. Nonsense. Harry said cheerfully. You haven't even seen the basement collection. Uncle Fester is conducting tours today. Something about demonstrating the practical applications of cursed Egyptian artifacts. Actually, I just remembered an urgent appointment, the inspector said quickly. But do cover that skeleton with a sheet or something, would you? For the children's sake. After he fled, Luna turned to Harry with a serene smile. That's the third inspector this month. They're getting predictable, Wednesday commented, stroking her pet raven. We should invite the next one to dinner. Speaking of dinner, Harry said, Mother and Father are hosting a family reunion tonight. All the cousins are coming, even cousin ITT with his new wife. Wonderful, Luna beamed. I've been working on my Addams family tree research. Did you know your great-great-grandfather once dueled Grindelwald to a standstill using only a butter knife and a particularly aggressive bowtruckle? That explains Grandmama's collection of commemorative butter knives, Harry mused. The shop door opened once more, admitting a group of excited Hogwarts students, led by a confident young man with blue hair, Teddy Lupin, Harry's godson and frequent visitor to the Addams household. Uncle Harry. Teddy called. I brought some friends to see the shop. I told them about the Hand of Glory display, and the living tattoo collection, and the room where the floor tries to swallow you. Perfect timing, Harry welcomed them. Wednesday was just about to feed the venomous tentacula. Always more entertaining with an audience. As the students gathered eagerly around, Harry caught Luna's eye and smiled. Life after Voldemort had taken unexpected turns, from Auror training, briefly, to curse-breaking with Gringotts, more interesting, to finally opening this shop with Wednesday as business partner and Luna as creative consultant. The Addams Family Magical Curiosities shop served many purposes beyond retail, a gathering place for friends, a research center for unusual magic, and a subtle education center where young witches and wizards could learn that magic existed in shades of gray, not just black and white. Ron and Hermione visited often, Ron now helping George run Weasley's Wizard Wheezes while Hermione revolutionized magical law. Neville, now Hogwarts herbology professor, collaborated with Morticia on rare plant breeding programs. Even Draco Malfoy occasionally stopped by, his post-war redemption having led to a surprising career in magical artifact authentication. That evening, as the extended Addams clan gathered in the mansion's great hall, a mix of Harry's birth family's friends and his adoptive relatives, Harry raised a glass in toast. To family, he proclaimed. Both born and chosen. To life and death, equally embraced. Gomez added enthusiastically. To finding light in darkness, Luna contributed dreamily. And to darkness that makes the light worth seeing, Wednesday finished. As glasses clinked and conversation resumed, Harry felt the comfortable weight of his dual legacy, Potter and Addams, savior and oddball, the boy who lived and the man who laughed at death. Voldemort had never understood that by making death the enemy, he had given it power over him. The Addamses had taught Harry a different truth, that embracing what others fear is the ultimate freedom. Outside, a storm gathered, lightning illuminating the family graveyard where generations of Addamses rested. Harry watched through the window as ghostly figures rose from various tombstones to join the festivities in their own way, death and life celebrating together, just as it should be. Magnificent, isn't it? Grandmama appeared beside him, her ancient eyes following his gaze to the spectral dancers among the graves. Perfect, Harry agreed. Absolutely perfect. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.